Welcome back, guys. This is Potter Fanfic Hub. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter what-if stories and hidden magic. What if Harry met the Malfoys at the zoo? And Lucius discovered he was Slytherin's true heir. If you enjoy epic magical videos, subscribe to Potter Fanfic Hub. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Boy at the Reptile House. The summer sun beat down on Privet Drive with an indifference that matched the neighborhood itself, each house identical, each lawn equally manicured, each life proceeding in blissful, suffocating monotony. Number 4 stood among them like a monument to ordinariness, its curtains drawn against the heat, its garden path swept clean of any imperfection. Inside, Harry Potter crouched in the narrow darkness beneath the stairs, his knees pressed against his chest, the familiar scent of dust and polish filling his nostrils. Through the thin wall, he could hear Uncle Vernon's heavy footsteps pacing the kitchen, punctuated by the occasional grunt of displeasure. Aunt Petunia's voice drifted in fragments, something about the zoo, about keeping Harry out of sight, about not causing another incident. Harry's fingers traced the splintered wood of his cupboard door. He'd learned years ago that the less attention he drew to himself, the smoother his life became. He'd learned to move silently, to anticipate the rhythm of their footsteps, to make himself so small and forgettable that sometimes even he forgot he existed. But today, something was different. The air felt charged, electric, like the moment before a thunderstorm, though the sky outside was a cloudless, oppressive blue. Harry pressed his palm flat against the floorboards, feeling an odd vibration beneath them, as if something deep underground was stirring. "Boy!" Uncle Vernon's bellow shattered the silence. "Get out here. We're leaving in 5 minutes." Harry scrambled to his feet, his head brushing against the low ceiling of his cupboard. He'd grown again over the summer, another inch that his clothes hadn't accommodated, the too short sleeves of his cousin Dudley's cast-offs riding up his wrists. He tugged them down as he emerged into the blinding brightness of the hallway. Uncle Vernon stood in the doorway, his face the color of an overripe tomato, his mustache bristling with barely contained fury. Behind him, Dudley waddled into view, already sweating through his massive t-shirt, clutching a bag of sweets that he was demolishing with mechanical efficiency. "Zoo," Uncle Vernon said, the word emerging like an accusation. "Dudley's birthday treat. And you," he jabbed a thick finger at Harry's chest, "you will behave yourself. You will speak to no one. You will not, under any circumstances, do anything freakish. Do I make myself clear?" Harry nodded, keeping his face carefully neutral. He'd perfected that expression, the blank, obedient mask that asked for nothing, expected nothing, revealed nothing. It was the only safe way to exist in this house. "The car," Aunt Petunia said, appearing behind her husband with an expression of refined disgust. "Now. And don't touch anything." The drive to the zoo was an exercise in careful invisibility. Harry pressed himself against the door of the back seat, watching the suburban sprawl give way to something slightly less orderly. Dudley sprawled across the remaining space, his bulk pushing Harry further into the corner, occasionally kicking out with a grunt of pleasure when his foot connected with Harry's shin. The zoo's entrance sprawled before them like a temple to mediocre entertainment, faded banners, a ticket booth manned by a teenager who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and the distant, mournful sound of something large and unhappy in captivity. Harry felt that strange vibration again, stronger now, pulsing through the concrete beneath his feet. "What are you staring at, freak?" Dudley shoved him from behind, nearly sending him sprawling into a family of tourists. Harry caught himself. His hands pressed against the rough stone of a low wall. Through his palms, he felt it, a deep, resonant thrum, like a heartbeat echoing through the earth itself. For just a moment, he could have sworn he heard something whisper in the vibration, though the sound was too faint to make out words. "Nothing," Harry said, straightening his glasses. "I wasn't staring at anything." Dudley's eyes narrowed, but before he could deliver another shove, Uncle Vernon's voice boomed across the courtyard. "Dudley! Come see the lions." The day blurred into a succession of enclosures, each housing some poor creature that stared out at its visitors with expressions ranging from bored to desolate. Harry drifted at the back of the group, half listening to Dudley's running commentary on which animals he would and wouldn't eat, half attuned to that persistent hum that seemed to grow stronger the deeper they went into the zoo. The reptile house loomed before them, a low, windowless building that smelled of damp earth and something metallic. Harry felt the vibration spike as he approached, a sudden, powerful surge that made his teeth ache and his scar prickle with an unfamiliar heat. "Dudley wants to see the snakes," Aunt Petunia announced, her nose wrinkling. "They're in here." The interior was dim, lit by the soft glow of heat lamps that cast pools of amber light across the exhibits. Enclosures lined the walls, each containing some specimen of scaled life coiled in simulated habitats. The air was thick and warm, heavy with the scent of reptiles and damp soil. Dudley immediately made a beeline for the largest enclosure, his face pressed against the glass with an expression of childish greed. "Look at that one, Dad. Bet I could fight it." The snake in question was a massive python, its emerald scales gleaming like polished gemstones in the dim light. It lay coiled in a heap, utterly still save for the slow, deliberate flicker of its forked tongue. Harry found himself drawn toward it, pulled by an inexplicable magnetism that had nothing to do with Dudley's taunts. "Show me," Harry said softly, pressing his own hands against the glass. "Please." And something happened. The python's head rose slowly, its golden eyes fixing on Harry with an intelligence that seemed impossible for a simple reptile. Its tongue flickered out once, twice, and then. "Hello," Harry said, the word emerging in a soft hiss that felt entirely natural, entirely correct. "You don't belong here, do you?" The snake's head swayed, and Harry understood, with perfect clarity, what it was saying. Born free. Taken from home. The heat is wrong, the light is wrong, and there is nothing real to hunt, "I know," Harry murmured, his fingers pressed flat against the glass. "I know what that's like. To be trapped. To be caged." Dudley's voice cut through the connection like a blade. "What are you doing, Potter? Talking to it? Such a freak." But his voice was suddenly drowned out by something else, a sound like music, low and ancient, rising from the depths of the reptile house. Harry turned, his body moving of its own accord, and saw them. Every snake in every enclosure had risen. Cobras swayed, their hoods spread wide in movements that were almost reverent. Boas uncoiled from their branches, their massive bodies dropping to the floor of their enclosures with soft thuds. Small green tree snakes emerged from the foliage, their heads lowered in a gesture that could only be described as submission. Even the non-venomous, the harmless, all of them, every serpent in the building, had turned toward Harry. "Heir," the word seemed to shimmer through the air, spoken in 100 hissing voices that Harry heard with perfect clarity. "The heir has come. The heir remembers, *" And then, impossibly, the glass of the python's enclosure shimmered. Harry blinked, and the glass was gone, replaced by a shimmering curtain of something like heat haze. The python flowed forward, sliding through the opening with an undulating grace that seemed to defy physics, its massive body spilling out onto the reptile house floor. "Get back!" Uncle Vernon shouted, his face gone white. "Everyone get back!" But the python wasn't interested in the screaming crowds, wasn't interested in Dudley's terrified squeals or Aunt Petunia's shrieks of horror. It moved toward Harry with unhurried purpose, its tongue flicking across his face in a gesture of recognition and respect. "Heir," it hissed again. "We have waited. Long have we waited. The blood sings, and we remember. We remember the old magic. We remember Salazar, *" "I don't understand," Harry breathed, raising a trembling hand to touch the snake's massive head. Its scales were cool and smooth beneath his fingers, and he felt a rush of something, power, perhaps, or understanding, flood through him. "What do you want from me?" "To serve," the python replied, and Harry could feel the sincerity in its voice, the ancient loyalty that had been bred into its very nature. To protect. To guide. The Dark One knows not what he seeks, but we know. We have always known. When the heir returns, the legacy awakens. Potter. Uncle Vernon's voice was hysterical now. Get away from that thing. Get away. Harry turned to look at his uncle, and for the first time in his life, he felt no fear. The python's presence at his side was a comfort, a shield, a promise of something that had been denied him for 11 years. Don't worry, Harry said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. It won't hurt me. It knows me. And it was true. The python knew him, knew something about him that even Harry himself didn't understand. The creature was ancient, ageless, and it carried within its scales the memory of generations, the knowledge of a bloodline that stretched back farther than Harry could imagine. Through the commotion, through the running visitors, the blaring alarms, the frantic zookeepers who had no idea how to handle a fully grown python loose in the building, Harry became aware of 3 figures watching from the shadows of the doorway. 3 figures that had not fled like the others. The man was tall and pale, his white blonde hair swept back from a face of aristocratic beauty, his black robes cutting a sharp figure against the dim light of the reptile house. Beside him stood a woman of equal elegance, her dark hair perfectly coiffed, her green robes embroidered with silver thread that caught the light like captured moonlight. And between them, a boy of about Harry's age, pale-haired and pointed-chinned, his grey eyes wide with a mixture of awe and confusion. The man's gaze locked onto Harry with an intensity that made him flinch. There was something in those pale eyes, recognition, perhaps, or the gleam of ambition. He was holding a snake that looked exactly like the one in the reptile house, and in that moment, the world seemed to turn in on itself. Lucius Malfoy had witnessed many impossible things in his life. He had stood at the Dark Lord's side, had seen magic that would break lesser minds, had been present at the birth and death of dreams that had shaken the wizarding world to its foundations. But nothing had prepared him for what he had just seen. The boy in the reptile house, thin, underfed, dressed in clothes that had clearly belonged to someone much larger, stood in the center of a sea of serpents, every snake in the building bowed before him as if he were a god. The great python at his side was ancient, its scale patterns marking it as one of the old ones, one of the creatures that had been bred by the first great wizard families to serve their heirs. And the boy was speaking Parseltongue. Not the broken, halting Parseltongue of a dabbler, but the deep, fluid speech of a native speaker, of someone to whom the language of serpents was as natural as breathing. My lord. Narcissa's voice was soft at his elbow. Do you know that boy? Lucius didn't answer immediately. He was watching the python bow its massive head, watching the boy's expression shift from confusion to something approaching awe. The child's scar was barely visible beneath his messy hair, but Lucius would have known it anywhere. The shape of it, the story of it, it was legendary, a mark burned into the history of their world. Harry Potter, Lucius breathed. The boy who lived. And yet, there was something more. Something in the way the snakes responded to him, in the depth of their reverence, in the ancient magic that shimmered through the reptile house like heat haze over the desert. This wasn't just the boy who had survived the killing curse. This was something older, something that predated Voldemort's rise by centuries. Draco, Lucius said sharply. What do you see? Draco's grey eyes were fixed on the scene before them. A boy, he said slowly. A boy who can talk to snakes. Father, is that the Harry Potter? It is, Lucius confirmed. But look deeper. Tell me what else you see. Draco's gaze shifted, tracking the movement of the serpents, the way they had oriented themselves toward the boy in a formation that was almost ceremonial. They're bowing to him, he said, his voice hushed with wonder. The snakes. All of them. Like he's their king. Exactly, Lucius murmured. Exactly. Narcissa's hand found his arm, her fingers tightening with urgency. Lucius, what is this? Is this dark magic? No, Lucius said, and the word emerged with a finality that surprised even him. This is something much older. Much deeper. Narcissa, do you recall the old stories? The tales of Salazar Slytherin's heir, not the ridiculous myths the ministry peddles, but the real ones? Her face paled. You can't be serious. I have never been more serious in my life. Lucius felt his pulse quicken, felt the stirring of ambition that had been dormant since the Dark Lord's fall. The snakes recognize him. Not as a master, not as a speaker, as their lord. That only happens with the direct bloodline. The true bloodline. But the Potters, Narcissa protested. They're not. No, Lucius agreed. They're not. Not that I know of. Which means something has been hidden. Something our families have forgotten, or, he paused, the thought striking him like a physical blow, or something that's been deliberately obscured. The python was moving now, sliding away from the boy with one final bow of its massive head. The other snakes were slowly returning to their enclosures, their reverence complete, their purpose fulfilled. And Harry Potter stood in the center of it all, looking utterly bewildered by what had just transpired. We have to leave, Narcissa said firmly. We're drawing too much attention. Lucius didn't move. He was still watching the boy, cataloging every detail. The clothing. The thinness. The way he held himself as if expecting a blow. The way his eyes flicked toward his relatives, a massive, purple-faced man who seemed to be in the grip of a rage bordering on apoplectic, and a horse-faced woman whose expression was one of refined horror. Look at him, Lucius said quietly. Look at the way they treat him. The boy who lived, cowering before muggles. What kind of life has he had? Lucius, Narcissa said again, and this time there was steel in her voice. We need to leave. Now. But Lucius didn't want to leave. He wanted to go to the boy, to speak with him, to unravel the mystery that was unfolding before his eyes. The blood of Slytherin flowed through his own veins, distant, diluted, but present nonetheless. If this boy was truly what he appeared to be, it changed everything. It changed the balance of power, the future of their world, the very fabric of magical society. He doesn't know, Lucius murmured. He has no idea what he is. Father? Draco's voice broke through his thoughts. Father, what are you talking about? Lucius dragged his gaze away from Harry Potter to look at his son. In Draco's grey eyes, he saw a mirror of his own ambition, his own hunger for a world that was better ordered, more just, more worthy of their ancient bloodlines. But Lucius also saw something else, a flash of compassion, perhaps, or the stirring of something that might someday grow into friendship. Draco, Lucius said slowly, if you could help someone, if you could make the world right, would you do it? Even if it meant going against everything you've been taught. Draco blinked, clearly taken aback by the question. I don't understand. Help who? But before Lucius could answer, a sharp crack split the air, and Harry Potter's uncle seized him by the arm, yanking him away from the reptile house with a brutality that made Narcissa gasp. The boy didn't struggle, didn't protest, he simply went limp in the man's grip, his expression turning to stone as if he'd had years of practice at enduring this particular humiliation. Look at that, Narcissa breathed, her voice cold with disgust. They're hurting him. He's just a child, and they're. I know, Lucius cut her off. I saw. Harry Potter disappeared around a corner, dragged away by his abusive relatives, and Lucius felt something shift in his chest. He had always believed in the supremacy of pure blood, in the natural order that placed certain families above others. But looking at the Dursleys, looking at the bruises that had been visible on Harry's thin arms, he felt a sudden, visceral disgust at the thought that such creatures could lay claim to something so precious. Father, Draco said, and his voice had a new quality to it, something harder, more determined. That boy. Harry Potter. He looked. I know what he looked like, Lucius said. And I know what I saw. The snakes didn't just recognize him, Draco. They worshipped him. There's only one line of descent that could inspire that kind of reaction. He paused, meeting his son's eyes directly. I think the boy may be the true heir of Salazar Slytherin. Draco's jaw dropped. But that's impossible. Slytherin's line died out centuries ago. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows a lie, Lucius countered. The ministry teaches what's convenient. The Dark Lord's claims were based on diluted blood at best. But that boy, that child, there's something primal about him. Something old. And I intend to find out exactly what it is. He turned to leave, but the reptile house was suddenly quiet, and he could feel the weight of the serpent's gazes on his back. They knew him, these snakes, knew him for what he was and what he wasn't. And the message they were sending was unmistakable. The heir has come, they whispered in their ancient tongues. The blood remembers. The legacy awakens. Beware, pretender, for the true Lord has returned. Lucius shivered despite himself. He'd grown up surrounded by snakes, had bred them in his manor's gardens, had used them as symbols of his family's power. But these creatures were different. They were old magic, the kind that had faded from their world, the kind that had been lost when Slytherin's true line had supposedly died out. But it hadn't died out. It had gone into hiding, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. Home, Lucius said abruptly. We need to go home. Now. The journey back to Malfoy Manor was silent, each member of the family lost in their own thoughts. Draco stared out the window, his face a mask of concentration, clearly trying to process what he'd witnessed. Narcissa's hand was cold in Lucius's grip, and he could feel the faint tremble in her fingers. You're certain? She asked quietly, when the manor's gates finally appeared through the trees. About the boy? I'm certain that something remarkable happened in that reptile house, Lucius said carefully. I'm certain that the snakes responded to him in a way they've never responded to me, or to any Malfoy, or to any pureblood I've ever known. That means something. It could be a fluke, Narcissa suggested. A one-time occurrence. Lucius shook his head. You know as well as I do that snakes don't fluke. They're loyal to blood and blood alone. If they bowed to that boy, it's because his blood commanded it. The manor loomed before them, its ancient stones gleaming in the late afternoon light. Lucius dismounted from the carriage with a sense of urgency that surprised him. He'd been patient his whole life, had waited years for the right opportunity to advance his family's interests. But now, watching Harry Potter's thin, bruised form being dragged away by muggles, he felt that patience evaporate. Narcissa, he said, turning to his wife as they entered the entrance hall, I'm going to the archives. I may be some time. Make sure Draco eats. The archives? Narcissa's eyebrows rose. Lucius, you haven't been in those chambers for years. I'm about to remedy that, Lucius said grimly. There are things I need to understand. Things that have been hidden, from me, from my father, from everyone. And I think that boy is the key. He was already moving toward the spiral staircase that led to the manor's lower levels, his footsteps echoing against the stone. The archives were a place of shadow and dust, a repository of secrets that had been accumulated by the Malfoy family for generations. Some of those secrets were dark, the family had supported many questionable causes over the centuries, but others were simply forgotten, fragments of knowledge that had been deemed too dangerous or too inconvenient to preserve. Lucius descended deeper than he usually went, past the family history, past the records of their political machinations, past the carefully catalogued spells and potions that had made their fortune. He reached a level he'd only visited once, as a young man, when his father had shown him the family's secret archives, the records that had been passed down from the Black family, from the Malfoy ancestors, from the early days of wizarding Britain. The door was carved from ancient oak, its surface etched with serpentine patterns that seemed to writhe in the torchlight. Lucius pressed his palm against it, and the door swung open with a groan of protest. Inside, the air was cold and dry. Rows of shelves stretched into the darkness, each one lined with books and scrolls of varying ages. At the far end of the chamber stood a pedestal, and upon that pedestal rested a single, leather-bound tome that seemed to radiate age. Lucius approached it slowly, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down upon him. He'd known about this book, of course, every Malfoy heir knew about it. But he'd never opened it, never explored its contents. His father had warned him against it, had said that some secrets were better left undisturbed. But the memory of Harry Potter standing among the serpents was fresh in Lucius's mind, and he knew that he couldn't leave those secrets buried any longer. He opened the book, and the smell of ancient parchment filled his nostrils. The pages were yellowed, the handwriting faded to brown in places. And as he read, Lucius felt the world shift beneath his feet. The prophecy was written in the old tongue, the language that had been used before the common wizarding era. Lucius was fluent in several languages, necessity, given the Malfoy family's international connections, but he struggled with this one, the grammar and syntax foreign to his modern understanding. "He shall emerge from the shadows of the ordinary," Lucius read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "And the serpents shall know him. The blood of the founder shall flow true in his veins, and he shall rise to claim his birthright." He stopped, his breath catching in his throat. The next line was simpler, easier to understand. "When the heir appears, the old magic awakens. The forgotten kingdoms stir. And the fate of wizard kind shall be decided." "Blood of the founder," Lucius murmured. "Blood flowing true. That can only mean one thing." He traced a finger along the page, feeling the texture of the ancient parchment. The boy is not just a descendant. He's the direct heir, the last of Salazar's true line. But that wasn't possible. The Potters were an old family, yes, but they had never been connected to Slytherin. Or had they? Lucius's mind raced through centuries of genealogy, trying to find a link that might explain what he'd witnessed. There were rumors, of course, whispers that had been passed down through certain pure-blood families, but they had always been dismissed as the ravings of lesser wizards. And then it hit him. The marriage that had been considered a scandal at the time, the blending of two houses that had never truly merged, the Potters and a cadet branch of the Gaunt family. The Gaunts had claimed descent from Slytherin, but their line had been considered muddied, diluted by generations of inbreeding and madness. But what if the blood was there? What if it had been preserved, hidden, waiting for the right convergence of circumstances? What if the Dark Lord himself had known? Voldemort had hunted the Potters for a reason that went beyond the prophecy of a chosen one. There had always been something deeper to the man's obsession with that family, something that Lucius had never fully understood. But now, reading the ancient prophecy, he began to see the shape of it. Voldemort had feared Harry Potter not just because he might be the chosen one, but because Harry might be the true heir, the one person who could claim the legacy that Voldemort himself had so desperately wanted. The Dark Lord had based his entire identity on his descent from Slytherin, but it had been a distant descent, a pale imitation of the real thing. "Fool," Lucius breathed. He was always a fool. He didn't realize that the blood was being preserved elsewhere, waiting for the right moment. The Potters were the direct line. The Gaunts were the descendants. And the Dark Lord, he shook his head in wonder. The Dark Lord was nothing but a pretender. The realization was staggering. If Harry Potter was truly the heir of Slytherin, then everything changed. The boy's allegiance, his education, his very future, all of it would be shaped by this revelation. And Lucius had the chance to be the one who shaped it. But there was a problem. Dumbledore. The old man had taken Harry from Godric's Hollow and placed him with Muggles, had hidden him away from the wizarding world as if he were a dangerous artifact rather than a child. Dumbledore had known about the prophecy, had known about the bloodline, and he had chosen to bury it all. "Albus Dumbledore," Lucius said, and the words emerged as a curse. Always playing the puppet master. Always keeping the truth from those who need it most. He closed the book with a decisive snap, the ancient leather creaking in protest. The serpent-shaped clasp seemed to wink at him in the dim light. "I'll find the truth," Lucius promised the empty chamber. "I'll find out exactly what kind of boy Harry Potter is. And if he is the true heir," he paused, the weight of the possibility settling on his shoulders. "If he is the true heir, I'll make sure he gets what he deserves. Even if it means burning the old order to the ground." The journey back up the winding stair was swift, driven by a purpose that Lucius hadn't felt since the Dark Lord's first rise. He emerged into the upper levels of the manor to find Narcissa waiting for him, her face pale with worry. "Well?" she asked. "What did you find?" Lucius smiled, a predatory expression that his wife recognized from their youth. "I found the truth, Chissa. And the truth is that everything we thought we knew about the bloodlines, about Slytherin's legacy, about the Potters, about the Dark Lord's claim," he shook his head slowly. "It's all been a lie. A convenient fiction that the old families have been perpetuating for centuries." "The boy," Narcissa said. "Harry Potter. He really is. He really is the true heir," Lucius confirmed. "The bloodline survived. It merged with the Potters, of all families, and it's been hiding in plain sight ever since." He laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "No wonder Voldemort wanted James Potter dead. No wonder he hunted the family with such ferocity. He knew. Or rather, he suspected. He must have sensed the bloodline when Harry was born, must have known that there was a legitimate heir out there." "But you said Voldemort's bloodline was stronger than anyone's," Draco said, appearing in the doorway with the distinctive footstep of someone who'd been eavesdropping. "You said he was the true heir." "I said a lot of things, Draco," Lucius said carefully. "Some of them were true at the time. Some of them were convenient. But the truth I've just discovered changes everything. The Dark Lord was never the true heir. He was a descendant, yes, but a distant one, from a branch of the family that had diluted the blood to the point of near irrelevance." Draco's face was a mask of confusion. "Then who is the true heir? Who does the blood truly belong to?" Lucius looked at his son, saw the hunger in his eyes for answers, for meaning. He saw himself, reflected back at him through the generations, and he felt a sudden surge of pity for the boy who had grown up on a foundation of lies. "Harry Potter," Lucius said softly. "The boy at the zoo. He's the true heir. And I think," he paused, the words forming in his mind even as he spoke them. "I think we need to reach him before Dumbledore does. Before Hogwarts. Before anyone else can poison him against us." "Father," Draco said, and there was something new in his voice, a determination that Lucius hadn't heard before. "Can we help him? The boy, Harry, he looked so sad. So broken." Lucius felt his heart contract. His son, his precious son, was already seeing the truth that Lucius himself had only just glimpsed. Harry Potter wasn't just a political asset, wasn't just a bloodline to be preserved. He was a child. A lonely, abused child who had been trapped in a world of muggles and forced to survive with nothing but his wits and his innate magic. "Yes," Lucius said, and the word felt like a vow. "We can help him. We will help him. He's been treated poorly by the world, and it's time someone stood up for him. If he's truly the heir, if the serpents recognized him, then he deserves to know the truth. He deserves to claim what's rightfully his." He turned to Narcissa, saw the approval in her eyes, the shared understanding that had sustained their marriage through the darkest days of the Wizarding War. "The boy is out there," Lucius said. "Living with muggles who are clearly abusing him. No wonder he hadn't shown any signs of his power. They've been crushing it out of him, forcing him to be small and forgettable and ordinary." "But the snakes at the zoo," Draco said. "They saw him anyway. They recognized him." "Magic finds a way," Lucius said. "It always does. And the blood of Slytherin? That's the oldest, most powerful magic of all. It cannot be contained. It cannot be destroyed. It will always, always find its way back. He strode to the window, gazing out at the sprawling grounds of Malfoy Manor. In the distance, he could see the serpentine gardens that had been planted by his ancestors, the hedge mazes that were designed to trap and confuse, the fountains that had been carved to resemble the creatures that had once been worshipped by their bloodline. "I need to see him," Lucius said. "I need to see the boy for myself, without the chaos of the zoo, without the muggles. I need to understand what kind of person he really is." "Lucius," Narcissa said, and her voice was sharp. "You can't just show up at his front door. The muggles will call the authorities. The ministry will be involved. Albus Dumbledore." "Dumbledore can go to hell," Lucius snapped. "He's had 11 years with that boy, and look what he's done with them. Locked him away with muggles who clearly despise him, forced him to live in a cupboard, convinced him that he's nothing special." He shook his head in disgust. "No. I'm not going to let that continue. If Harry Potter is the true heir, then he deserves a better life than this. He deserves to know his heritage, to learn the magic that's rightfully his. And if he's not?" Narcissa asked quietly. "If all of this is simply wishful thinking?" Lucius met her gaze, and in that moment, he was absolutely certain. "He is the true heir," he said. "I saw the way the serpents responded to him, Chisa. I've spent my entire life around snakes. I've bred them for magical properties, cultivated them for their venom, even had them in my presence when I was at the height of my power. And never, not once, have I seen them behave the way they did today. They recognized something in that boy that no pure blood has inspired in centuries." He moved toward the door, a plan forming in his mind. "I need to find out more," he said. "I need to investigate the Potters' lineage, trace their ancestry, find the marriage that connected them to the Gaunt line. If I can prove that Harry Potter is the true heir, I can present my case to the boy himself, and to the magical world at large." "And then what?" Narcissa asked. "What do you plan to do with him?" Lucius paused at the doorway, turning to look at his wife. "I plan to protect him," he said. "I plan to teach him. I plan to help him reclaim the legacy that the world has stolen from him. And I plan to stand at his side when he rises to claim what's rightfully his. Even if it means opposing Voldemort?" Narcissa asked quietly. "Even if it means turning against everything he stood for?" Lucius smiled, and the expression was cold. Voldemort was never what he seemed. He was a pretender, a charlatan who built his power on a foundation of lies. If Harry Potter is the true heir, then Voldemort's claim is worthless. His entire movement, his entire ideology, it's all built on a falsehood. And I'd rather stand with the truth than cling to a lie." He stepped through the doorway, already planning his next move. The road ahead was uncertain, full of dangers that he couldn't even anticipate. But for the first time in years, Lucius felt a sense of purpose that went beyond ambition or greed. He was going to save the true heir. And in doing so, he was going to save magical Britain itself. Chapter 2, The Forgotten Prophecy. The Malfoy Manor library stretched into shadowed depths that seemed to defy the architecture of the building itself. Lucius Malfoy stood at its heart, surrounded by towering shelves that reached toward a ceiling lost in gloom, each shelf groaning under the weight of centuries of accumulated knowledge. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of moonlight that filtered through the high windows, and the air smelled of old parchment, leather bindings, and something else, something ancient and metallic that Lucius had never quite been able to identify. He had been here for 3 days. Narcissa had brought him meals that he'd barely touched. Draco had crept in twice, his grey eyes wide with curiosity, before being gently but firmly escorted out by his mother. The house elves had learned to move in absolute silence, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpets that covered the stone floor. And Lucius had read. He had read until his eyes burned and his head throbbed, until the words on the pages began to blur together into a tapestry of names and dates and bloodlines that stretched back farther than he'd ever imagined possible. The truth was there, hidden in the margins of forgotten texts, in the genealogies that had been compiled by obsessive ancestors, in the letters and journals that had been preserved despite their dangerous contents. The truth was that Salazar Slytherin's bloodline had never truly died. It had simply changed. Adapted. Hidden itself behind a veil of ordinary names and unremarkable lives. Lucius traced a finger along a faded family tree, his eyes following the line from Salazar himself. Through a daughter that history had forgotten, a daughter who had been married off to a minor noble family to secure an alliance, her existence deliberately obscured to protect her from the political enemies that Salazar had accumulated during his lifetime. Elena, Lucius murmured, reading the name for the first time. Elena Slytherin. Born 998 AD, married to, he squinted at the faded script. Roderick Potter. The first of the Potters to carry Slytherin blood. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. The Potters had been a respected magical family for centuries, but they had never been considered truly ancient, not like the Malfoys, the Blacks, the Lestranges. They were a family of scholars and healers, respected but not revered, powerful but not dominant. And yet, buried deep in their lineage, was the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself. No wonder Voldemort wanted James Potter dead, Lucius breathed. He must have suspected. He must have sensed that there was something different about that family, something that threatened his own claim. He turned the page, his fingers trembling slightly. The next document was a prophecy, not the one that Trelawney had spoken in the Hog's Head, but something much older. Something that had been written in the year 1066, when William the Conqueror was reshaping the face of Britain and the magical world was hiding in the shadows. When the blood of the serpent and the blood of the protector shall merge, Lucius read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper, the true heir shall be born. He shall walk among the ordinary, hidden from the wise, and the serpents shall know him. He shall rise in darkness, claiming the legacy that was denied him. And the pretender shall fall, his power broken by the very magic he sought to control. The words seemed to pulse on the page, glowing faintly in the dim light. Lucius felt a shiver run down his spine, a sense of destiny unfolding before his eyes. The blood of the serpent and the blood of the protector, he murmured. Slytherin and Potter. And the pretender, Voldemort. He's the pretender. He's always been the pretender. He closed the book, his mind racing. The prophecy described Harry Potter with uncanny accuracy, the ordinary upbringing, the recognition by serpents, the rise to claim a legacy that had been denied. But there was more to it than that. There was a warning, a caution that Lucius couldn't quite decipher. The pretender shall fall, his power broken by the very magic he sought to control, Lucius repeated. But what magic? And how? The Dark Lord has spent decades mastering the darkest arts. He's created Horcruxes, he's pushed the boundaries of what magic can do. What could possibly break his power? The answer, when it came, was so simple that Lucius almost laughed. Harry Potter himself. The true heir had magic that was older than Voldemort's, deeper than the Dark Lord's twisted creations. The ancient magic of Salazar Slytherin, the magic of the founders themselves, was the one thing that could truly destroy Voldemort. He's been hunting the wrong enemy, Lucius said, shaking his head slowly. All these years, he's been obsessed with a prophecy about a chosen one. But that prophecy was just a distraction. The real threat was always the true heir. He gathered the books and scrolls, stacking them carefully on the table before him. He needed to share this information, with Narcissa, with Draco, with anyone who could help him reach Harry Potter before it was too late. But as he turned to leave, something caught his eye. A small, leather-bound journal tucked between two larger volumes, its spine cracked with age. Lucius pulled it free, noting the faded initials on the cover, A.B. Albus Black. No, Albus Dumbledore. His heart hammered against his ribs as he opened the journal. The handwriting was unmistakable, the same elegant script that adorned Dumbledore's many letters and documents. And the contents made Lucius's blood run cold. I have discovered the truth about the Potter bloodline, Dumbledore had written, in an entry dated 1981. James Potter carries the blood of Slytherin through his maternal line. It is distant, diluted, but undeniably present. This presents a complication that I had not anticipated. Lucius flipped forward, his eyes scanning the entries desperately. The prophecy speaks of a child born to those who have thrice defied the Dark Lord. But the prophecy also speaks of the true heir. I believe these two prophecies are connected. The child who will defeat the Dark Lord may also be the true heir of Slytherin. This is a dangerous combination. The blood of the founder must not be allowed to fall into the hands of those who would pervert it. Lucius felt his hands begin to shake. Dumbledore had known. He had known about the bloodline, about the prophecies, about everything, and he had chosen to keep it a secret. I have decided to place the child with the Dursleys, the journal continued. The blood protections of Lily Potter's sacrifice will keep him safe until he comes of age. The blood of Slytherin must be contained, controlled. If the boy were to discover his true heritage, he might become a danger to himself and others. Better that he should grow up in ignorance, believing himself to be ordinary. Better that he should be abused and neglected, Lucius snarled, slamming the journal shut. Better that he should suffer in a cupboard under the stairs, never knowing who he truly is. You arrogant, manipulative old man. You had no right. He was shaking with rage now, his knuckles white against the leather cover. Dumbledore had taken a child with the blood of the founders in his veins, and had hidden him away like a dirty secret. He had deliberately kept Harry in the dark, deliberately ensured that he would grow up without any knowledge of his heritage, his power, his potential. Why? Lucius demanded, though there was no one there to answer. Why would you do this? What could possibly justify such cruelty? The answer, when it came, was sickening in its simplicity. Power. Control. Dumbledore had wanted to shape Harry Potter into a weapon, a tool to be used against Voldemort. He hadn't wanted a true heir who might challenge his own authority, who might claim the power that Dumbledore had carefully accumulated over the decades. He wanted a puppet, Lucius said slowly. A puppet who would do exactly as he was told, who would never question the old man's wisdom, who would walk willingly into the fire because he believed he was doing the right thing. Lucius felt a cold certainty settle over him. He would reach Harry Potter before Dumbledore could. He would tell the boy the truth, teach him about his heritage, help him claim the power that was rightfully his. I won't let him use you, Lucius promised, speaking to a boy he'd never truly met. I won't let him twist you into something you're not. You deserve to know who you are. You deserve to make your own choices. He left the journal on the table, refusing to take such a damning piece of evidence with him. But he remembered every word, every damning admission. When the time came, he would use it. He would expose Dumbledore's machinations and force the old man to answer for his crimes. Narcissa was waiting for him in the drawing room, her face pale with concern. Draco sat beside her, his posture tense, his eyes fixed on the door. When Lucius entered, both of them rose to their feet. Well? Narcissa demanded. What did you find? Lucius sank into his favorite armchair, feeling the weight of everything he'd discovered pressing down on him. The truth, he said simply. The whole truth, or at least as much of it as I've been able to uncover in the last 3 days. Harry Potter is the true heir of Slytherin. His bloodline goes back to Salazar himself, through a daughter that history forgot and a marriage that was deliberately obscured. And Voldemort, he paused, the words sticking in his throat. Voldemort is nothing but a pretender. A distant descendant, at best. His claim to Slytherin's legacy is so thin as to be almost non-existent. Draco's jaw dropped. But that's impossible. Everyone knows that the Dark Lord was the true heir. He opened the Chamber of Secrets. He controlled the basilisk. He controlled a monster, Lucius corrected. That's not the same as being the true heir. The chamber responded to his Parseltongue, yes, but that was just a surface-level reaction. The real legacy, the deeper magic, the ancient wards, the knowledge that Salazar Slytherin left behind, it didn't respond to him. It would never respond to him. Because it was waiting for someone else. Harry Potter, Narcissa said quietly. The boy at the zoo. The boy at the zoo, Lucius confirmed. The boy who spoke to the snakes the way I speak to you. The boy who inspired a reverence in those creatures that I've never seen before. The boy who is, by blood and by right, the sole heir to Salazar Slytherin's legacy. He paused, his mind racing. But that's not all. I found something else in the archives, something that changes everything. Dumbledore knew. He knew about the bloodline, knew about the prophecies, knew exactly what Harry Potter was. And he hid it. He deliberately placed the boy with Muggles, deliberately kept him in ignorance, deliberately ensured that he would never discover his true heritage. Narcissa's face hardened. That old man. That scheming, manipulative old man. He's been playing the long game, Lucius said bitterly. He's been shaping Harry Potter into a weapon against Voldemort, a weapon that he could control, a weapon that would never question him. He wanted the true heir to be a puppet. And he nearly succeeded. Draco had been silent throughout, his face a mask of concentration. But now he spoke up, his voice low and determined. Father, what can we do? How can we help Harry? Lucius looked at his son, seeing the earnestness in his eyes, the desire to make a difference. In that moment, he felt a surge of pride in the boy that Draco was becoming. We can give him the truth, Lucius said. We can show him what Dumbledore has hidden from him. We can help him claim his legacy, teach him the magic that's rightfully his, and stand with him when the time comes to face Voldemort. And Dumbledore? Narcissa asked. What about him? Lucius's expression hardened. Dumbledore will be dealt with. When the time comes, when Harry knows the truth and has taken his rightful place, we will expose the old man's machinations for what they are. He will answer for what he's done to that child. But first, there was work to be done. Work that would require patience, subtlety, and a willingness to operate in the shadows. Lucius needed to investigate the Potter's lineage in more detail, to confirm the bloodline connection beyond any doubt. He needed to find a way to reach Harry Potter, to make contact with him without alerting Dumbledore or the Ministry. I'll need to spy on the Dursleys, Lucius said, the plan forming in his mind even as he spoke. I'll need to understand their routine, their habits, their weaknesses. And I'll need to find a way to approach Harry without raising suspicion. You can't just show up at his door, Narcissa warned. The Muggles will call the authorities. The Ministry will be involved. Dumbledore will. I know, Lucius cut her off. I'm not planning anything reckless. But I need to see him, Narcissa. I need to understand what kind of boy he really is. The prophecy speaks of his greatness, but prophecies can be misleading. I need to see for myself. Narcissa nodded slowly, her expression troubled but accepting. And what about Draco? What do you want him to do? Lucius turned to his son, considering the question carefully. Draco was young, only 11, and Harry Potter was a complete unknown. But Lucius had seen the way Draco had looked at Harry in the reptile house, the curiosity and concern that had flickered in his gray eyes. I want you to be ready, Lucius said finally. When Hogwarts starts, when Harry Potter arrives, I want you to be his friend. I want you to be the first person he trusts in the wizarding world. Draco blinked, clearly surprised by the request. But father, he was raised by Muggles. He doesn't know anything about our world. He might not even be sorted into Slytherin. He will be sorted into Slytherin, Lucius said with absolute certainty. The blood of Slytherin doesn't just disappear. It manifests in strange ways, in unexpected places. If Harry Potter is truly the heir, the Sorting Hat will recognize it. He will be placed in the house of his ancestors, whether he wants it or not. But what if he doesn't want it? Draco pressed. What if he wants to be a Gryffindor, like his parents? Lucius smiled, a cold, knowing expression. Then we'll have to show him why Slytherin is better. We'll have to prove to him that the House of Salazar is not the dark place the world has painted it. We'll have to show him that Slytherin is about ambition, about greatness, about claiming what's rightfully yours. He rose from his chair, pacing the length of the room as the thoughts crystallized in his mind. And we'll have to protect him from Dumbledore's influence. The old man will try to turn him against us, will try to poison him with his ideals of love and mercy and sacrifice. We have to show Harry the truth about his heritage, about his power, about what he's truly capable of. Narcissa moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. And you think you can do this? You think you can change the course of Harry Potter's destiny? Lucius met her eyes, and in that moment, he was absolutely certain. I don't just think it, Narcissa. I know it. Harry Potter is the true heir of Slytherin. He was born for greatness, and I'm going to help him achieve it. The next morning, Lucius began his surveillance of Privet Drive. He used every tool in his considerable arsenal: concealment charms, enchanted mirrors, a network of informants that stretched across the wizarding world. He watched from a distance, careful to avoid detection by the Muggle authorities or the Ministry's observers. He studied the Dursleys' routine, their habits, their hidden cruelties. And he watched Harry Potter, the boy who was destined for greatness, suffer in silence. The first thing Lucius noticed was how invisible Harry was. The boy moved through his days like a ghost, never drawing attention to himself, never making a sound. He was relegated to a cupboard under the stairs, his living space smaller than Lucius's wardrobes. He was fed scraps, clothed in cast-offs, and treated with a casual cruelty that made Lucius's blood boil. The second thing Lucius noticed was how resilient Harry was. Despite everything, the neglect, the abuse, the complete lack of affection, the boy never broke. He never complained, never begged for mercy, never sank into the despair that would have consumed a lesser soul. He endured, quietly and patiently, as if he knew that something better was waiting for him. And the third thing, the most surprising thing, was how kind Harry was. Lucius watched the boy interact with his cousin Dudley, who was a spoiled, cruel brat if ever there was one. Dudley tormented Harry relentlessly, but Harry never retaliated, never showed any sign of resentment. He simply accepted the abuse as his due, as if he believed that this was all he deserved. Brilliant, Lucius muttered, watching from behind a concealment charm as Harry weeded the garden under the hot sun. Absolutely brilliant. The boy is a saint, and they treat him like dirt. Narcissa was beside him, her face a mask of barely contained fury. How can they do this? How can anyone do this to a child? Because Dumbledore allowed it, Lucius said bitterly. Because Dumbledore decided that Harry's safety was more important than his happiness. Because Dumbledore believes that suffering builds character, that hardship makes you strong. It's monstrous, Narcissa said. We have to do something. We have to get him out of there. We will, Lucius promised. But we have to be careful. If we move too quickly, we'll alert Dumbledore. The old man has his spies everywhere, even here in the Muggle world. We need to plan, to strategize, to make sure that when we act, we do it correctly. They watched in silence as Harry finished his chore and retreated back into the house. Through the kitchen window, Lucius could see the boy being handed a plate of scraps by his aunt, who looked at him as if he were something unpleasant that had been tracked in on her carpet. I hate them, Narcissa said softly. I hate them for what they've done to him. As do I, Lucius agreed. But hatred will get us nowhere. We need to focus on the endgame, getting Harry out of there and into a better life. And when we do? Narcissa asked. What then? Lucius smiled, a slow, predatory expression. Then we teach him. We help him claim his legacy. We show him what it means to be the true heir of Slytherin. He watched as Harry disappeared from sight, heading toward the back door with a purpose that suggested he was trying to avoid something unpleasant. Lucius knew that the boy had been beaten recently. He'd seen the bruises on Harry's arms, the careful way he'd moved as if his ribs were hurting. "We'll have to act before Hogwarts," Lucius said decisively. "Before Dumbledore can get his hooks into the boy any deeper. We need to establish a connection with Harry, to show him that he has allies in the wizarding world." "How?" Narcissa asked. "We can't exactly walk up to his front door and introduce ourselves." Lucius considered the problem, his mind racing through possibilities. "We'll do it subtly. We'll use intermediaries, create opportunities for contact that seem coincidental. Perhaps a trip to Diagon Alley, carefully arranged. Perhaps a letter that seems to be from an old friend of his parents." "You're planning a campaign," Narcissa said. "A campaign to win Harry Potter's trust." "I'm planning to save a child," Lucius corrected. "A child who was born for greatness and who has been denied everything that should have been his. If that means playing a long game, then I'll play it." The weeks that followed were filled with careful observation and meticulous planning. Lucius made multiple trips to Privet Drive, always under concealment, always careful to avoid detection. He catalogued Harry's routine, his strengths and weaknesses, the small moments of defiance that hinted at a spirit that was stronger than it appeared. He also continued his research into the Potter lineage, confirming the connection to Slytherin through multiple independent sources. The bloodline was there, traceable through centuries of marriages and alliances, each generation bringing the power closer to the surface. James Potter was a direct descendant of Elena Slytherin, Lucius told Narcissa one evening, after a particularly productive session in the archives. The bloodline carried through the female line for generations, fading but never fully disappearing. And then James married Lily Evans, a Muggle-born, yes, but a powerful one. Their union brought the bloodline into its full potential. "And Harry is the result," Narcissa said. "The convergence of the bloodline and the prophecy." "Exactly," Lucius confirmed. "Harry Potter is the culmination of centuries of waiting, of magic that has been lying dormant, of a legacy that was almost lost. He is the true heir, in every sense of the word." He paused, a thought striking him. "And we're going to protect him. We're going to make sure that he survives to claim his birthright. Voldemort might be powerful, but he's nothing compared to the magic that's waiting for Harry." Narcissa nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "And Draco? How does he fit into all of this?" Lucius smiled. "Draco will be Harry's friend. His ally. His brother in arms. They're the same age, they'll be in the same year at Hogwarts, assuming Harry is sorted into Slytherin, which he will be. They'll grow up together, learn together, stand together against the dark." "Do you think Draco will be able to befriend him?" Narcissa asked. "He's been raised to believe that Muggles and Muggleborns are inferior. Harry was raised by Muggles. He might not." "Draco is smarter than he lets on," Lucius said. "He's seen what the Dursleys have done to Harry. He's seen the bruises, the neglect, the cruelty. And he's not a monster. He's a boy who wants to do what's right. If we guide him, he'll become a better man than either of us." Narcissa reached out and took his hand. "You're really committed to this, aren't you? To helping Harry Potter?" Lucius nodded slowly. "I've spent my entire life serving the wrong masters, Chissa. I supported Voldemort because I believed he was the only one strong enough to lead the wizarding world. But he was never the true heir. He was never more than a pretender, a pale imitation of the greatness that should have been ours." "And Harry is the real thing," Narcissa said. "And Harry is the real thing," Lucius confirmed. "He deserves better than what he's been given. And I'm going to make sure he gets it." He rose from his chair, feeling a sense of purpose that had been absent since the Dark Lord's first fall. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with dangers and challenges that he couldn't fully anticipate. But for the first time in years, Lucius Malfoy knew exactly what he needed to do. He was going to save Harry Potter. He was going to protect the true heir. And he was going to help the boy claim his legacy, no matter what it cost. The moon hung low over Malfoy Manor, casting silver shadows across the ancient stonework. In the distance, Lucius could hear the rustle of serpents in the gardens, the soft hiss of their voices carried on the night air. They, too, were waiting for the heir to come into his power, waiting for the ancient magic to awaken. Not long now, Lucius murmured. Not long until everything changes. He gazed up at the stars, the map of destiny spread out before him. Somewhere out there, Harry Potter was sleeping in his cupboard, dreaming of a world he didn't know existed. And soon, very soon, that world would come calling. Lucius Malfoy would be there to welcome him home. Chapter 3, The Cupboard Heir. The summer heat had settled over Privet Drive like a suffocating blanket, thick and oppressive, pressing down on the identical houses with an almost malevolent weight. Number 4 stood in its accustomed place, its windows dark, its curtains drawn against the sun, a fortress of ordinariness that hid extraordinary secrets within its walls. Lucius Malfoy had been watching for 3 weeks now, and every day brought fresh evidence of the horror that Harry Potter endured within those pristine walls. He'd arrived at dawn that morning, concealed beneath a disillusionment charm so powerful that even the most sensitive magical detectors would have missed him. He'd positioned himself in the branches of a sturdy oak across the street, his enchanted spyglass trained on the kitchen window, and he'd watched. He'd watched Harry rise before the sun, emerging from his cupboard with the careful, silent movements of a prisoner who had learned never to draw attention. He'd watched the boy prepare breakfast for his relatives, bacon, eggs, toast, all perfectly cooked, all served without a word of thanks. He'd watched Harry's aunt snap at him for breathing too loudly, his uncle shove him aside with a grunt of disgust, his cousin laugh as Harry stumbled and nearly fell. And now, in the afternoon heat, Lucius watched as Harry knelt in the garden, his thin fingers buried in the dirt as he pulled weeds from the flower beds. The boy's face was streaked with sweat, his glasses sliding down his nose, his too large shirt hanging off his bony shoulders. He worked methodically, silently, never once complaining or asking for help or even looking up at the house that was supposed to be his home. "He's been at it for 4 hours, Narcissa said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. She was beside him, concealed beneath her own charm, her elegant robes replaced by simple muggle clothes that somehow still looked aristocratic on her. 4 hours in this heat, without water, without rest. And there inside, watching the telly and eating ice cream." Lucius didn't answer. He was too focused on the thin boy in the garden, cataloguing every detail of his suffering. The bruises on Harry's arms were new, dark purple and green, clearly recent. The way he moved suggested that his ribs were still tender from the last beating. And the hunger in his eyes, the desperate, hollow look that spoke of a boy who had never known what it was like to feel full. "I can't watch this anymore," Narcissa said suddenly. "I can't just stand here and let this happen. He's just a child, Lucius. A child who should be loved and cherished and protected." Lucius lowered his spyglass, turning to look at his wife. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, her jaw set with determination. He'd seen that look before, on the night she defied the Dark Lord to save Draco, on the day she'd stood by him through the worst of the war. It was the look of a woman who had reached her limit. "What do you propose we do?" he asked quietly. "Walk up to the front door and demand they release him? We'd have the ministry on us before we could explain." "We could take him," Narcissa said. "Just take him. Now. Today. Apparate him out of that garden and bring him to the manor. The Muggles wouldn't be able to follow, and by the time the ministry figured out what happened, we'd be arrested for kidnapping," Lucius finished. "Chissa, I understand your anger. I share it. But we have to be smart about this. Dumbledore has eyes everywhere. If we act rashly, we'll lose any chance we have of reaching Harry before the old man can control him." Narcissa's hands were shaking. "Then what do we do? What can we possibly do?" Lucius turned back to the garden, watching Harry struggle with a particularly stubborn weed. The boy's fingers were bleeding now, tiny cuts from the thorns that he hadn't bothered to avoid. He wiped the blood on his trousers, clearly a reflex, a gesture so ingrained that Harry probably didn't even notice he was doing it. "We help him," Lucius said slowly, the plan forming in his mind even as he spoke. Subtly. Carefully. "We make sure he knows that someone cares, that he's not alone in this world." "How?" Narcissa demanded. "How do we do that without revealing ourselves?" Lucius smiled, a cold, determined expression. "We start small. A hot meal that appears in his cupboard. A blanket that's warmer than the ones he has. A message, written in invisible ink, that tells him he's not forgotten." Narcissa's eyes widened. "You're talking about direct intervention. Without his knowledge. That's what he needs," Lucius said firmly. "He's been alone for 11 years, Chissa. 11 years of abuse and neglect, without a single person in the world who cares whether he lives or dies. If we can show him that someone is watching, that someone is looking out for him, it might give him the strength to hold on." The weed came free with a sudden, violent lurch, and Harry fell backward into the dirt. He lay there for a moment, breathing heavily, his eyes closed against the sun. And in that moment, Lucius saw something that broke his heart, a single tear, tracking down the boy's dirty cheek. "He's crying," Narcissa whispered. "He's crying, and no one cares." Lucius felt something shift inside him, a wall that had been there for years, a barrier between him and the world that had kept him safe through the war and its aftermath. It crumbled in the face of Harry Potter's silent tears. "That's going to change," he said. And his voice was hoarse with emotion. "Starting now. Starting today. Harry Potter is never going to cry alone again." The spell was simple, a minor bit of household magic that he'd learned from his mother when he was just a boy. A warming charm, gently applied to the blanket in Harry's cupboard. A cooling charm, woven into the fabric of his too-large shirt. A small, self-replenishing pot of soup, hidden in the cupboard's darkest corner. But the message that accompanied it, that was something else entirely. "You are not alone," Lucius wrote, his quill scratching across the parchment in elegant, flowing script. "Someone sees you. Someone cares. Help is coming. Stay strong, Harry Potter. Your destiny awaits." He sealed the message with a charm that would make it invisible until Harry touched it, a simple protection that would ensure that the Dursleys never discovered it. And then, when the night was dark and the house was silent, he slipped into the cupboard under the stairs. The space was smaller than he'd expected. He'd known it was tiny, he'd seen the plans, the dimensions that had been recorded in the Muggle building records, but actually being inside it was something else entirely. The walls pressed in on him, the ceiling so low that even he, a grown man, had to stoop. The air was stale and dusty, thick with the smell of sweat and fear and something else, something that might have been hope, buried so deep that it barely registered. But what struck him most was the boy himself. Harry Potter lay curled on a thin mattress, his knees drawn up to his chest, his face half hidden in the shadows. He was smaller than he'd appeared from a distance, more fragile. His wrists were thin, his fingers covered in scratches from the garden. And yet, even in sleep, there was something about him, a resilience, a stubborn refusal to break. Lucius moved silently, placing the pot of soup on the floor, draping the blanket over the boy's thin shoulders. He tucked the parchment into Harry's hand, careful not to wake him. And then, because he couldn't help himself, he reached down and brushed a strand of hair from the boy's forehead. The scar was warm beneath his fingers. Lucius had seen it in pictures, heard the stories 1,000 times. But touching it, feeling the ancient magic that pulsed beneath the skin, was something else entirely. It was old magic, deep and powerful, the kind that had been woven into the fabric of the wizarding world when the founders themselves were still alive. "You are going to change the world," Lucius whispered. "You are going to be great. And I am going to make sure you survive to see it." The words were barely audible, a promise made in the darkness. But as he turned to leave, Lucius could have sworn he saw Harry smile, a small, fleeting expression that was gone almost before it appeared. Outside, in the cool night air, Narcissa was waiting. "Did you do it?" she asked urgently. "Did you reach him?" "I reached him," Lucius confirmed. "I left him food and warmth and a message. It's not much, but it's a start." Narcissa nodded slowly, her expression troubled. "And what about the Dursleys? What do we do about them?" Lucius's expression hardened. "They won't hurt him again. Not like this. I've placed protective charms on his cupboard, nothing that will be visible, nothing that will alert Dumbledore, but enough to keep him safe from the worst of their abuse. If his uncle tries to beat him again, the charm will deflect the worst of the force. If his aunt tries to starve him, the food will appear. They won't even realize it's happening. Can you do that?" Narcissa asked. "Place protective charms without the Ministry detecting them?" Lucius smiled. "I've spent my entire life learning how to hide magic from the Ministry, Chissa. A few simple charms, woven into the fabric of the house itself, they'll never know what hit them." They stood in silence, watching the sleeping house. In the distance, a dog barked, and an owl hooted from the branches of the oak tree. Life went on, ordinary and oblivious to the extraordinary events unfolding in its midst. "When will we tell him?" Narcissa finally asked. "When will he know the truth?" "Soon," Lucius said. "Soon, but not yet. He's not ready. He needs to recover from what they've done to him, needs to understand that there's more to the world than this miserable little house. When he's stronger, when he's ready to hear it, then we'll tell him everything." "And Dumbledore?" Narcissa pressed. "What about the old man?" Lucius's expression darkened. "Dumbledore is the biggest threat, Chissa. He's been manipulating Harry's life from the shadows, controlling everything the boy sees and hears and knows. He wants Harry to be a weapon, a tool, a puppet. And we're going to make sure that doesn't happen." "How?" Narcissa asked. "How do we fight someone like Albus Dumbledore?" Lucius turned to face her, his eyes blazing with determination. "We fight him with the truth. We show Harry what the old man has done, the lies he's told, the abuse he's allowed. And we offer Harry something better, a family that will love him, a home that will protect him, a destiny that will make him great." He paused, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I know what Dumbledore is, Chissa. I've seen the dark side of him, the manipulative streak that he hides behind his twinkling eyes and grandfatherly smile. He'll use Harry up and throw him away, just like he used everyone else. And I'm not going to let that happen." Narcissa reached out and took his hand. "We do this together," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, we do this together." Lucius nodded, his heart swelling with love for this woman who had stood by him through everything. "Together," he agreed. "Always." The next day, the soup was gone. Lucius watched through his spyglass as Harry emerged from his cupboard, his movements careful and quiet as always. But there was something different about the boy, a new light in his eyes, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips. He moved with a new confidence, a new purpose, as if he'd finally found a reason to hope. "The soup," Narcissa breathed. "He ate it. He ate it all." Lucius watched as Harry went about his morning chores, noting the way he kept touching his shirt pocket, where the message was hidden. He hadn't shared it with anyone, hadn't shown it to his relatives. He was keeping it safe, keeping it secret, just as Lucius had hoped. "He believes," Lucius said softly. "He believes that someone cares about him. That's all he needed. That's all any child needs." The days that followed were a careful dance of subtle interventions. Lucius wove protective charms into the fabric of the house, subtle and undetectable, designed to shield Harry from the worst of his relatives' cruelty. He left small gifts, a warm hat, a pair of shoes that actually fit, a book that seemed to appear from nowhere. He watched as Harry's spirits lifted, as the boy began to smile more often, as the light in his eyes grew brighter. Draco had been asking questions, curious about the mysterious boy who had appeared in the reptile house. Lucius had told him part of the truth, that Harry was a powerful wizard, that he was living with cruel relatives, that he needed help. Draco's response had been unexpected. "We should bring him here," Draco had said firmly. "We have plenty of rooms. He could stay with us. I could teach him about the wizarding world." Lucius had been touched by his son's generosity, even as he'd shaken his head. "Not yet, Draco. He's not ready. But when he is, when he comes to Hogwarts, you'll be there for him, won't you?" Draco had nodded solemnly. "I'll be his friend," he promised. "I'll protect him from anyone who wants to hurt him. Even Dumbledore." Now, watching Harry through the spyglass, Lucius felt a surge of hope. The boy was changing, growing stronger with each passing day. The protective charms were working, giving him the space he needed to heal. And soon, very soon, he would be ready to learn the truth about who he really was. "He's going to be great," Lucius murmured. "Greater than any of us can imagine. And we're going to help him get there." Narcissa squeezed his hand. "We will," she said. "We'll help him rise, help him claim his legacy, help him become the wizard he was born to be." Lucius smiled, watching as Harry waved at a passing bird, his face full of wonder and joy. In that moment, he made a vow to himself and to the boy who would change the world: no matter what it took, no matter what it cost, he would make sure that Harry Potter survived to claim his birthright. The Dursleys would never hurt him again. Dumbledore would never control him. And Voldemort would never, ever defeat him. Not while Lucius Malfoy still drew breath. Chapter 4, Secrets Beneath Gringotts. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, carried by an owl that seemed to materialize from the very fabric of the summer sky. Harry Potter was in the garden, his fingers buried in the soil, when the bird swooped down and deposited the envelope directly into his hands. He stared at it, his heart hammering against his ribs. The parchment was thick and creamy, the address written in elegant emerald ink that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. And the seal, a serpent, coiled around a letter M, was unmistakably magical. "Boy!" Uncle Vernon's voice boomed from the kitchen window. "What are you doing out there? Get back to work." Harry shoved the letter into his pocket, his fingers trembling with excitement. He'd been receiving messages for weeks now, small notes that appeared in his cupboard, gifts that seemed to come from nowhere, always signed with that same serpent seal. He didn't know who was sending them, didn't understand why they were helping him, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty: someone out there cared about him. Someone out there wanted to save him. The afternoon dragged on endlessly, each minute stretching into an hour as Harry waited for night to fall. When the Dursleys finally retired to their bedrooms, Vernon grumbling about the heat, Petunia clucking about the state of the garden, Harry crept to his cupboard and pulled out the letter. The seal broke easily beneath his fingers, and the parchment unfolded to reveal elegant, flowing script. "Dear Mr. Potter. I trust this letter finds you well. I have been watching your progress with great interest, and I believe the time has come for us to meet. Please be ready at midnight. Someone will come for you, Yours in trust. L.M." Harry read the letter 3 times, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. Midnight. Someone would come for him. Someone wanted to meet him. He didn't know who L.M. was, didn't understand why they were helping him, but he knew that this was his chance to escape the Dursleys, to learn about the world that seemed to be calling to him, to discover who he really was. He packed his meager belongings, the letter, the warm blanket that had appeared in his cupboard, the small potion that had healed his cuts and bruises, and waited. The clock struck 11. Then 11:30. Then 1/4 to midnight. And then, exactly at midnight, the door to his cupboard swung open. Harry gasped, scrambling backward against the wall. But the figure that stood in the doorway wasn't one of the Dursleys. It was a tall, pale man with white blonde hair and cold grey eyes, dressed in elegant black robes that seemed to absorb the light around them. "Good evening, Harry," the man said, and his voice was smooth and cultured, with just a hint of something dangerous lurking beneath the surface. "I'm Lucius Malfoy. I've been watching over you for quite some time." Harry's mouth opened, but no words came out. He'd seen this man before, at the zoo, standing in the shadows of the reptile house, his cold eyes fixed on Harry with an intensity that was both terrifying and exhilarating. You were at the zoo," Harry finally managed. "You saw." "I saw everything," Lucius Malfoy confirmed. "I saw the snakes bow to you. I saw the ancient magic that flows through your veins. And I knew, in that moment, that you were something special." He paused, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. "I also saw the way your relatives treat you. The abuse. The neglect. The cruelty. And I knew that I had to help you." Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. He'd been alone for so long, had suffered in silence for so many years. And now, finally, someone had come for him. Someone had seen his pain and wanted to make it stop. "Who are you?" Harry asked, his voice trembling. "Why are you helping me?" Lucius Malfoy smiled, a slow, calculating expression that somehow made Harry feel both frightened and comforted. "I'm a friend," he said simply. "A friend who believes that you deserve better than this. A friend who wants to help you claim your birthright." He extended his hand. "Come with me, Harry. I'll explain everything. But first, we have to get you out of here." Harry didn't hesitate. He reached out and took Lucius Malfoy's hand, and the world dissolved around him. The sensation of apparition was unlike anything Harry had ever experienced. His body felt like it was being squeezed through a tube of toothpaste, his organs pressing together, his mind spinning with the impossible speed of their movement. And then, suddenly, it was over. They stood in a vast, marble-floored hall, surrounded by towering pillars and glittering chandeliers. Goblins in formal attire bustled about, their sharp features and beady eyes fixed on ledgers and scrolls. And at the far end of the hall, a massive desk stood beneath a banner that read, "Gringotts Wizarding Bank." "Welcome to Gringotts," Lucius Malfoy said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "We have a great deal to discuss, Harry. But first, there's someone I'd like you to meet." He led Harry through the crowded hall, past the goblins and wizards and witches who all seemed to stare at the boy with a strange intensity. Harry felt exposed, vulnerable, his too large clothes and bruised body drawing looks of pity and disgust in equal measure. But Lucius Malfoy didn't seem to notice. He swept through the crowd with an air of aristocratic confidence, his cane tapping against the marble floor, his eyes fixed on a point in the distance. The goblin behind the massive desk was ancient, his face wrinkled and scarred, his long fingers covered in rings of gold and silver. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, fixed on Harry with an intensity that made the boy want to shrink away. "Lucius Malfoy," the goblin said, his voice like gravel. "You bring a most interesting guest. The Potter boy. We were wondering when you'd finally arrive." "Grip Hook," Lucius said, inclining his head in acknowledgement. "I trust you've prepared the necessary documents." The goblin, Grip Hook, nodded, his long fingers shuffling through a stack of papers. "Everything is in order," he said. "The inheritance tests, the vault access, the blood validation. We've been expecting you for quite some time, Mr. Potter." Harry blinked, utterly confused. I don't understand. What inheritance tests? What vaults?" Lucius smiled, placing a comforting hand on Harry's shoulder. "All in good time, Harry. First, we need to confirm something. Something that will change everything you thought you knew about yourself." He led Harry to a small room off the main hall, a space filled with strange instruments and glowing crystals. A goblin in a long white robe was waiting for them, a needle-like instrument in his hand. This will hurt, the goblin warned, but only for a moment. Please extend your hand, Mr. Potter. Harry hesitated, looking at Lucius for reassurance. The tall wizard nodded encouragingly, his cold eyes warm with something that might have been compassion. It's all right, Lucius said. I promise. This is necessary. This is how we'll discover the truth. Harry extended his hand, and the goblin pricked his finger with the needle. A drop of blood welled up, dark crimson against pale skin, and the goblin pressed it against a shimmering crystal. The crystal began to glow, pulsing with a light that seemed to come from deep within. The goblin's eyes widened, his gnarled fingers trembling as he read the results. Impossible, he breathed. This is. What is it? Harry demanded. What does it say? Lucius stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the glowing crystal. Read it aloud, he commanded. I want to hear it directly from you. The goblin cleared his throat, his voice shaking with something that might have been awe. Harry James Potter. Son of James and Lily Potter. Born July 31, 1980. Blood status, pure blood, with traces of Muggle ancestry through maternal line. But, he paused, his eyes widening further, there's more. Much more. Continue, Lucius said, his voice barely above a whisper. The goblin took a deep breath. Harry Potter is also the direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin, through a daughter named Elena, who married Roderick Potter in the year 998 AD. The bloodline has remained pure for over 1,000 years, passed down through the female line until the present day. Harry Potter, the goblin's voice cracked, Harry Potter is the true heir of Slytherin. The room was silent, the words hanging in the air like a prophecy come to life. Harry felt the world tilt around him, his knees threatening to buckle. I'm what? He finally managed. I'm related to Salazar Slytherin. The founder? The one who built the Chamber of Secrets, Lucius finished. The one who was vilified by history, who was portrayed as a blood purist and a monster. But the truth, Harry, the truth is far more complicated than that. Salazar Slytherin was a great wizard, one of the greatest who ever lived. And you are his direct descendant. The only one. Harry sank into a nearby chair, his mind reeling. He'd grown up believing he was nothing, a worthless orphan, a burden on his relatives, a freak who didn't belong anywhere. And now, suddenly, he was being told that he was the descendant of one of the most powerful wizards in history. I don't understand, he said, his voice trembling. My parents, they were Gryffindors. They hated Slytherin. How could I? Your father was a descendant through the female line, Lucius explained patiently. The blood of Slytherin passed through his mother, and her mother before her, all the way back to Elena. It didn't manifest in him the way it's manifesting in you. But it was always there, waiting for the right combination of circumstances. He paused, his expression growing serious. And there's more, Harry. Much more. The inheritance tests reveal that you are not just the heir of Slytherin. You are also the direct heir of the Potter family, through your father's line. And that means multiple vaults, the goblin interrupted, his voice still trembling with awe. The Potter vaults, of course, those have been in trust until you came of age. But there are others. Vaults that have been sealed for centuries, waiting for the true heir to claim them. Harry felt his head spinning. Vaults. Inheritance. Bloodlines. It was all too much to take in, too much to process. Show me, he said, the words emerging before he could stop them. Show me everything. Lucius smiled, a genuine expression that softened his aristocratic features. I was hoping you'd say that, he said. Grip hook, prepare the carts. We have a great deal to explore. The journey into the depths of Gringotts was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Harry clung to the edge of the cart as it hurtled through the underground tunnels, past vaults and caverns and ancient magical defenses. Goblins in the shadows watched them pass, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. The first vault they visited was the Potter Vault, a cavernous space filled with gold and silver and bronze, enough money to last Harry several lifetimes. But even as Harry stared at the wealth spread before him, he couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. The second vault was different. It was sealed with ancient magic, the door carved from solid obsidian, the lock in the shape of a serpent. When Harry touched the door, the serpent seemed to come to life, its eyes glowing green as it studied him. "Only the true heir may enter," a voice said, echoing from the depths of the door. "The blood of Slytherin must flow true. The magic of the founder must recognize its own." "Touch the door again," Lucius said, his voice tense with anticipation. "Press your palm against it. Let the magic see who you are." Harry hesitated, then placed his palm against the cool obsidian. The serpent's eyes flared green, and the door swung open with a sound like stone grinding against stone. The vault inside was smaller than the Potter Vault, but it was far more impressive. Shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient books and scrolls, their pages yellowed with age. A massive chest stood in the center of the room, its lid adorned with a golden serpent that seemed to writhe in the dim light. Harry moved toward the chest, drawn by an inexplicable force. The serpent's eyes met his, and he heard a voice in his mind, old, powerful, resonant with authority. "Welcome, heir," the voice said. "I have waited a long time for you." Harry's hand closed around the chest's lid, and he lifted it. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a crown, a circlet of silver and emerald, shaped like a coiled serpent, its eyes two flawless emeralds that seemed to glow with inner light. "The serpent crown," Lucius breathed, his voice filled with wonder. "I thought it was lost. I thought it had been destroyed centuries ago." Harry reached into the chest, his fingers closing around the crown. The moment he touched it, power surged through him, ancient, primal power that made his scar burn and his blood sing. He lifted the crown from its resting place and placed it on his head. And then the world exploded. Light burst from the crown, filling the vault with an emerald radiance that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Harry felt the magic flowing through him, ancient and powerful, connecting him to something vast and eternal. He saw images flashing through his mind, the construction of Hogwarts, the founding of the four houses, the battles and betrayals and triumphs of 1,000 years. And at the center of it all, Salazar Slytherin himself, a tall, dark-haired man with piercing green eyes, who gazed at Harry with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "You are my heir," the vision said. * my true heir. The one I've been waiting for all these centuries. You will be greater than me, Harry Potter. Greater than any of us. You will change the world. The vision faded, and Harry found himself standing in the vault, his hand still clutching the crown. Lucius was staring at him, his face pale with shock. "What happened?" Harry asked, his voice hoarse. "What did I just see?" Lucius took a long, slow breath. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "But I think you've just been acknowledged. By Salazar Slytherin himself. The crown has bonded with you, Harry. You are no longer just a descendant. You are the rightful heir." Harry looked down at the crown in his hands, feeling the power pulsing through it. The serpent's eyes seemed to wink at him, and he felt a surge of confidence, of purpose, of destiny. "What happens now?" he asked. "What do I do with this?" Lucius smiled, a warm expression that Harry had never seen on his face before. "Now, Harry, we prepare. For Hogwarts, for the future, for everything that's to come. But first," he paused, his eyes flickering to the shelves of books and scrolls, "we learn. We explore. We discover the secrets that have been hidden from you for far too long." He extended his hand to Harry. "Are you ready to begin?" Harry looked at the crown, then at the shelves of ancient knowledge, then at the man who had saved him from the Dursleys and shown him the truth. He thought of everything he'd lost, his parents, his childhood, his innocence. And he thought of everything he could gain, a legacy, a purpose, a family. "Yes," he said, taking Lucius's hand. "I'm ready." The goblins watched them leave, their sharp eyes gleaming with something that might have been respect. The vault door closed behind them, sealing the ancient treasures within until the heir should return. But as Harry rode the cart back to the surface, the serpent crown hidden beneath his robes, he felt the magic pulsing through him, ancient and powerful, waiting to be unleashed. He didn't know what the future held, didn't know how he would navigate the dangerous political landscape that awaited him at Hogwarts. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was Harry Potter. He was the true heir of Slytherin. And nothing, not Voldemort, not Dumbledore, not all the forces of darkness in the world, was going to stop him from claiming his birthright. The serpent crown pulsed against his chest, and Harry Potter smiled. Chapter 5, The Serpent Crown. The serpent crown pulsed with a life of its own, its emerald eyes gleaming in the darkness of Harry's room at Malfoy Manor. He'd been given one of the finest guest chambers, a vast space with four-poster bed, silk curtains, and a view of the sprawling gardens that stretched into the distance. But Harry couldn't sleep. The crown called to him, its ancient magic whispering secrets that he was only beginning to understand. He sat cross-legged on the bed, the crown resting in his lap, its weight both comforting and overwhelming. The emerald seemed to glow with an inner fire, casting shifting patterns of green light across the walls. And as Harry watched, the patterns began to form shapes, serpents, coiling and uncoiling, their bodies forming words that he could almost read. "Listen." The crown seemed to whisper. Listen to the blood. Listen to the magic. Remember what you are, Harry closed his eyes, letting the crown's magic wash over him. Images flickered behind his eyelids, ancient castles, vast libraries, forests of towering trees. He saw wizards in robes that had gone out of fashion centuries ago, their faces sharp and proud, their eyes gleaming with power. He saw serpents, thousands of them, slithering through the corridors of a castle that he recognized as Hogwarts. And at the center of it all, a man, tall, dark-haired, with piercing green eyes that seemed to see straight through Harry's soul. "Salazar," Harry breathed, the name rising unbidden to his lips. "You're Salazar Slytherin." The vision smiled, a sad, knowing expression. "I am what remains of him," the image said. A fragment of memory, preserved by the crown for the moment when my true heir would finally claim it. "You have done well, Harry Potter. You have survived the darkness, endured the suffering, and emerged stronger than I could have hoped, Why did you hide?" Harry asked, the question tumbling out before he could stop it. "Why did you let everyone believe that you were a monster?" The vision's expression grew troubled. I was not always the man they portray in their histories. I was ambitious, yes. Proud, certainly. But I was not evil. I wanted to protect the magical world, to preserve our heritage, to ensure that our kind would not be destroyed by the very muggles we sought to help, He paused, his eyes growing distant. But my fellow founders, they did not understand. They saw my desire to protect, my fear of exposure, and they twisted it into something darker. Godric Gryffindor was my closest friend, and he turned against me. Rowena Ravenclaw and Helga Hufflepuff, they followed his lead, convinced that my caution was cruelty, But you built the Chamber of Secrets, Harry said. You created the basilisk. That was fear, Salazar interrupted. Fear that the world I had helped to build would be destroyed. Fear that the muggles would rise up and destroy us all. I created the chamber as a last resort, a weapon to be used only in the direst of circumstances. But I never intended for it to be used against the innocent. I never intended for my legacy to become a tool of hatred, The vision reached out, and Harry felt a phantom touch on his forehead, cool and gentle against his scar. You are different, Harry. You carry the blood of the founders, of me, and of Godric Gryffindor, through your mother's line. You are the bridge between the old world and the new. You have the power to heal the wounds that I helped to create. How? Harry asked desperately. How do I do that? I'm just a boy. I don't know anything about magic or politics or... You know more than you think, Salazar interrupted gently. You have survived abuse, neglect, and isolation. You have learned to read people, to anticipate their moods, to protect yourself from their cruelty. These are skills that cannot be taught in any classroom. These are the skills of a leader. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. He'd spent so long believing that he was worthless, that his suffering was a sign of his failure. But Salazar was telling him that his suffering had made him strong, had given him the tools he needed to succeed. The crown, Harry said, touching the circlet in his lap. What does it do? The vision smiled. The crown is a key, Harry. A key to the legacy of Slytherin, to the magic that has been hidden for 1,000 years. It will open doors that have been sealed, reveal secrets that have been lost, connect you to the ancient power that flows through your veins. But it will also test you, challenge you, force you to prove yourself worthy of the legacy you carry. How do I prove myself? Harry asked. By being true to yourself, Salazar replied. By showing courage in the face of fear, compassion in the face of cruelty, and wisdom in the face of temptation. The crown will not respond to ambition alone. It responds to the strength of your character, the purity of your heart. Harry nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was just a boy, barely 11 years old, and already the fate of the wizarding world seemed to rest on his shoulders. Will you help me? He asked quietly. Will you guide me? I will always be with you, Salazar promised. I am a part of you now, a part of the blood that flows through your veins. When you need me, I will be there. When you doubt yourself, I will remind you of who you are. The vision began to fade, the image of Salazar Slytherin dissolving into motes of emerald light. But his voice lingered, echoing through Harry's mind like a whispered promise. You are the heir, Harry Potter. The true heir. Claim your legacy. Change the world. And remember, you are never alone. Harry opened his eyes, the crown still pulsing gently in his lap. The room was quiet, the moonlight streaming through the windows, casting silver shadows across the floor. But Harry could feel the ancient magic thrumming through the walls of the manor, responding to his presence, awakening from its long slumber. He rose from the bed, the crown still in his hands, and moved to the window. The garden stretched before him, a labyrinth of hedges and fountains and hidden pathways. And in the distance, he could see the serpents, hundreds of them, rising from their hiding places to pay homage to their new master. Heir, they seemed to whisper. The heir has come. Harry felt the power surging through him, ancient and primal, connecting him to the serpents and the magic and the legacy of Slytherin itself. He raised the crown above his head, and the emeralds blazed with light. The serpents in the garden bowed their heads, their forked tongues flickering in the darkness. The trees rustled, the fountain stilled, and the very earth seemed to hold its breath. And in that moment, Harry Potter knew that his life would never be the same. He was no longer the boy in the cupboard, the orphan, the freak. He was something else entirely, something that the wizarding world had not seen in 1,000 years. He was the true heir of Slytherin. The next morning, Harry was awakened by a gentle knock at his door. He opened it to find Draco standing in the hallway, his grey eyes bright with excitement. "Father wants to see you," Draco said. "He says there's something important we need to discuss." "Something about the crown?" Harry nodded, tucking the circlet beneath his robes. He'd slept with it on his bedside table, its presence a constant comfort in the unfamiliar surroundings. Now, as he followed Draco through the winding corridors of Malfoy Manor, he felt the crown pulsing gently against his chest, its magic a warm, reassuring presence. Lucius Malfoy was waiting in the library, a vast space filled with towering shelves and ancient tomes. He stood by the window, his back to the door, his hands clasped behind him. When Harry and Draco entered, he turned to face them, his expression grave. "Harry," he said, "there's something you need to understand about the crown you now possess. It's not just a symbol of your heritage. It's a key to the ancient wards that protect magical Britain." Harry blinked, confused. "Wards? What wards?" Lucius gestured for them to sit, taking his own seat in a high-backed chair that seemed to have been designed for him. When Salazar Slytherin helped to found Hogwarts, he didn't just build a school. He wove ancient magic into the very stones of the castle, magic that protected the wizarding world from external threats. Those wards have been weakening for centuries, Harry. They've been fading because the bloodline that powered them was thought to be extinct. Harry's eyes widened. "But You're the true heir," Lucius confirmed. "The bloodline that powers the wards. When you placed the crown on your head, you reawakened the ancient magic. The wards are strengthening again, spreading across Britain like a ripple in a pond. Every wizard with even a trace of the old blood can feel it." He paused, his expression growing even more serious. "That includes Voldemort." Harry felt his blood run cold. "He knows. He knows something," Lucius said carefully. "He may not understand exactly what's happening, but he can sense the shift in power. And he will be desperate to find the source of it. Desperate to claim it for himself." "But he can't," Draco interjected, his voice fierce. "He's not the true heir. He's just a pretender." "The Dark Lord doesn't care about truth," Lucius said. "He cares about power. If he believes that the crown is a source of ancient magic, he will stop at nothing to obtain it. And that means," he turned to look directly at Harry, "you're in danger. More danger than you've ever faced before." Harry felt the weight of the crown pressing against his chest, its magic warm and protective. "I'm not afraid," he said, and the words were true. "I've been afraid my whole life. I'm done being afraid." Lucius smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his aristocratic features. "Good. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Because we're going to need that courage, Harry. We're going to need every ounce of it." He rose from his chair and moved to a bookshelf, pulling down a heavy tome that seemed to glow with ancient magic. "The crown has awakened the wards, but that's just the beginning. There are other artifacts, other protections, other pieces of Slytherin's legacy that have been waiting for the heir to claim them. And we're going to find them before Voldemort does." Harry nodded, his resolve hardening. "Where do we start?" Lucius opened the tome, revealing pages covered in a script that Harry couldn't read. "The crown itself is the key," he said. "It will guide you to the other pieces of the legacy. But you need to learn how to use it, how to listen to its magic, how to let it guide you." He handed the tome to Harry, who took it with trembling hands. The pages seemed to pulse with an inner light, responding to his touch. "Start reading," Lucius said. "Start learning. We have a long road ahead of us." Harry spent the rest of the day in the library, the crown resting on the table before him, its magic pulsing in time with his heartbeat. The ancient text was difficult to read, its language archaic and its script faded, but as he studied, the words began to make sense. The crown was a compass, pointing toward the other pieces of Slytherin's legacy, artifacts that had been hidden across Britain, waiting for the heir to claim them. But it was more than that. The crown was also a weapon, a source of ancient power that could be used to protect and defend. Harry felt the magic flowing through him, strengthening him, making him feel more confident and capable than he'd ever felt before. Draco joined him in the late afternoon, his face alight with curiosity. "What have you learned?" he asked, settling into a chair beside Harry. "I've learned that I'm not just the heir of Slytherin," Harry said slowly. "I'm something more. Something that hasn't existed for 1,000 years. I'm the bridge between the old world and the new." Draco's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Harry shook his head, not quite sure how to explain. "The wards," he said finally. They're tied to the bloodline, but they're also tied to something else. Something deeper. The crown showed me, there's a network of ancient magic that stretches across Britain. It was woven by the founders, designed to protect the wizarding world from the outside. And I'm the one who can activate it. Draco was silent for a long moment, processing the information. Then, slowly, he nodded. That's incredible, he said. That's more powerful than anything the Dark Lord ever achieved. I don't want power, Harry said, and the words were true. I just want to survive. I want to make sure that no one else has to go through what I went through. I want to build a world where children don't grow up in cupboards, where families don't abuse their own blood. Draco's expression softened. You're a good person, Harry. Better than most. Better than I could ever be. Harry shook his head. I'm not good. I'm just trying to do what's right. They sat in companionable silence, the crown pulsing gently on the table between them. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. And in the distance, Harry could feel the ancient wards awakening, spreading across Britain like a protective blanket. The magic was alive again. And he was its master. That night, Harry dreamed of the Chamber of Secrets. He was standing in a vast, circular room, its walls adorned with carved serpents that seemed to watch him with ancient eyes. At the center of the room stood a massive statue, a wizard with long, flowing robes and a face that was both familiar and strange. Salazar, Harry breathed, recognizing the features from the vision in the crown. The statue did not move, but Harry felt the presence of the ancient wizard, his magic reaching out to touch Harry's own. You have done well, Heir, the voice echoed. The crown has accepted you. The wards have reawakened. But there is more to claim, more to discover, more to become. You must enter the Chamber of Secrets. You must claim what is rightfully yours, Where is it? Harry asked. Where is the chamber? You will find it, the voice promised. When the time is right, when your heart is ready, the chamber will call to you. And you will answer, The dream faded, and Harry woke to find the crown pulsing on his bedside table, its emerald eyes glowing with inner fire. He reached out and touched it, feeling the ancient magic surge through him, and knew that he was ready. He was ready to face whatever came next. Ready to claim his legacy. Ready to become the true heir of Slytherin. The crown seemed to smile, its emerald eyes sparkling with approval. Welcome home, Heir, it whispered. Welcome home. Chapter 6, The Hogwarts Letters. The first letter arrived on a Thursday, carried by an owl that seemed to materialize from the very fabric of the morning mist. Harry was in the gardens of Malfoy Manor, practicing the simple spells that Lucius had been teaching him, when the bird descended with a flutter of wings and deposited the envelope directly into his hands. He stared at the thick parchment, his heart hammering against his ribs. The address was written in elegant emerald ink, Mr. H. Potter, The Gardens, Malfoy Manor, Wiltshire, and the seal, a golden crest, featuring a lion, a badger, an eagle, and a serpent coiled around the letter H, was unmistakably Hogwarts. Harry. Draco's voice called from the terrace. Father wants to see you. He says it's urgent. Harry tucked the letter into his robes and hurried inside, his mind racing. He'd been expecting this. Lucius had told him that the Hogwarts letters would be arriving soon, but now that it was actually happening, he felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Lucius was waiting in the library, his face grave. Narcissa stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly together, and Draco hovered in the doorway, his grey eyes wide with curiosity. Harry, Lucius said, his voice carefully controlled, I believe you've received a letter from Hogwarts. Harry pulled the envelope from his robes, holding it up for inspection. It arrived just now. I haven't opened it yet. Lucius nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Good. We need to discuss this carefully. The letters from Hogwarts are not just invitations, Harry. They're also a means of monitoring. Dumbledore uses them to track the movements of magical children, to gauge their development, to determine how best to influence them. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. You think Dumbledore will use this letter to find me? I think Dumbledore will use every tool at his disposal to maintain control over you, Lucius said grimly. He's been watching you for years, Harry. He placed you with the Dursleys, arranged for your protection, and ensured that you would grow up in ignorance of your true heritage. He won't be pleased to discover that you've slipped out of his grasp. But he must know that I'm here, Harry said. The wards, the crown, they must have sent ripples through the magical world. He must have sensed something. Lucius smiled, a cold, calculating expression. He sensed something, certainly. But he doesn't know what. The wards are ancient, Harry, older than Dumbledore, older than the Ministry itself. They respond only to the blood of the founders. Dumbledore can feel the shift in magical balance, but he can't trace it back to its source. Not yet. He paused, his eyes meeting Harry's. But he will. Eventually. And when he does, he'll come looking for you. Which is why we need to be prepared. What do I do? Harry asked, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. Do I open the letter? Do I respond? Open it, Lucius said. Read it carefully. And then we'll decide how to proceed. Harry broke the seal, his fingers trembling slightly. The parchment unfolded to reveal elegant, flowing script. Dear Mr. Potter. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31 st. Yours sincerely. Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress. The letter was accompanied by a list of required supplies, textbooks, cauldrons, robes, a wand. Harry read through it twice, his mind racing with questions. This is it, he said slowly. This is my invitation to the wizarding world. Lucius nodded. It is. But there's something else you need to see. A letter from Dumbledore himself, addressed specifically to you. Harry looked up, startled. What? Lucius reached into his robes and produced a second envelope, this one sealed with the crest of the Order of the Phoenix. This arrived separately, addressed directly to you. It didn't go through the usual channels. Dumbledore sent it by his own personal owl. Harry took the envelope, his hands trembling. The letter inside was shorter than the first, written in a spidery script that seemed to dance across the page. Dear Harry. I hope this letter finds you well. I have been watching your progress with great interest, and I am pleased to inform you that Hogwarts eagerly awaits your arrival, However, I must confess that I have noticed some unusual magical fluctuations in your vicinity. I would be grateful if you would come to my office at your earliest convenience so that we might discuss these matters in person, I look forward to meeting you properly. Yours sincerely. Albus Dumbledore. Headmaster, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry stared at the letter, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He knows, he said quietly. He knows something's happened. He's trying to lure me in. Lucius nodded grimly. He's testing you, Harry. Seeing if you'll come to him willingly, if you'll fall into his web. This is a trap. Harry felt a surge of anger, not at Lucius, but at Dumbledore. The old man had placed him with the Dursleys, had allowed him to suffer for 11 years, and now he was trying to manipulate him, to control him, to turn him into a weapon against Voldemort. I'm not going, Harry said firmly. I'm not going to let him use me like he used everyone else. I'm going to Hogwarts, but I'm going on my own terms. I'm going to learn what I need to learn, and then I'm going to decide my own destiny. Lucius smiled, a warm expression that transformed his aristocratic features. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. But we need to be careful, Harry. We need to move slowly, deliberately. Dumbledore has spies. Everywhere, in the Ministry, in the Order, even within Hogwarts itself. If he discovers what we're planning, he'll do everything in his power to stop us. How do we avoid that? Harry asked. Lucius leaned forward, his expression conspiratorial. We work from the shadows. We use the ancient magic of the crown to shield our movements. We build alliances with those who are loyal to the true bloodline. And when the time is right, when you're ready, we reveal ourselves to the world. Harry nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was just a boy, barely 11 years old, and already he was being thrust into a world of politics and intrigue and ancient magic. But he wasn't afraid. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. He had the crown. He had the magic. He had Lucius and Narcissa and Draco, who had become more of a family to him in the past few weeks than the Dursleys had ever been. He was ready. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Harry studied the Hogwarts curriculum, learning the spells and potions that would be required of him. He practiced with the crown, learning to harness its power, to listen to its guidance, to let the ancient magic flow through him. And through it all, he questioned everything he'd been told about his past. Tell me about my parents, he asked Lucius one evening, as they sat in the library surrounded by ancient tomes. The real story. Not the one Dumbledore wants me to believe. Lucius was silent for a long moment, his expression troubled. Your parents were good people, Harry. Brave, talented, fiercely loyal to each other and to their friends. But they were also idealistic. They believed in Dumbledore's vision of the wizarding world, a world where bloodlines didn't matter, where everyone could work together in harmony. And that was wrong? Harry asked. It was naive, Lucius said carefully. Your father, James, was a Gryffindor to his core. He believed in doing what was right, even when it wasn't practical. He was so focused on the principles of the war that he failed to see the bigger picture. What bigger picture? Harry pressed. Lucius sighed, setting down his book. The bigger picture, Harry, is that the wizarding world is built on a foundation of ancient bloodlines and sacred traditions. The old families, the Malfoys, the Blacks, the Lestranges, they've been the guardians of that foundation for centuries. They've preserved the magic, protected the knowledge, ensured that our world would survive the ages. But the blood purity. Blood purity is not about hatred, Lucius interrupted. It's about preservation. It's about ensuring that the ancient magic, the magic of the founders, the magic that protects our world, doesn't fade away. There's a reason why Muggle-born wizards are less powerful than purebloods, Harry. It's not because they're less worthy. It's because they haven't inherited the ancient bloodlines that give power its strength. Harry was silent, processing the information. He'd grown up believing that the Dursleys were right, that magic was something to be feared, that wizards were freaks. Now he was being told that his own heritage was the key to preserving the magical world. So what does that make me? He finally asked. The true heir of Slytherin. What does that mean for the world? Lucius smiled, a slow, calculating expression. It means that you have the power to change everything, Harry. You can unite the ancient bloodlines, rebuild the old alliances, lead the magical world into a new era of prosperity and strength. But first, you have to survive. You have to learn. You have to grow strong enough to claim what's rightfully yours. Harry nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. I'm ready, he said. I'll do whatever it takes. Lucius reached out and clasped his shoulder, a gesture of genuine affection. I know you will, Harry. That's why I'm so proud of you. The day before Harry was due to leave for Diagon Alley, Draco appeared at his door with a look of barely contained excitement. Father says we're going together, he announced. You, me, and him. He says it's time to show the wizarding world the heir of Slytherin. Harry felt a surge of nerves. Are you sure that's wise? What if someone recognizes me? Draco shrugged, his expression carefree. That's the point. Father says we need to start building your public image, to make sure the world knows who you really are. Besides, he grinned, it'll be fun. We can get ice cream after. Harry couldn't help but laugh. Despite everything, the prophecies, the political intrigue, the weight of the ancient magic, Draco had a way of making him feel like an ordinary boy. All right, he said. Let's go show the world what I'm made of. The journey to Diagon Alley was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Harry stepped through the leaky cauldron's enchanted wall and found himself in a bustling thoroughfare filled with wizards and witches, magical creatures and enchanted objects. The sights and sounds overwhelmed him, cauldrons bubbling with mysterious potions, owls hooting from perches, wands crackling with sparks of light. But what struck him most was the way people looked at him. Whispers followed him through the crowd, their voices carrying on the enchanted air. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. Look at his scar, it's really him. I heard he's been living with muggles all this time. Poor thing, he looks so thin. Harry felt the weight of their gazes pressing down on him, the burden of his fame suffocating him. But then Draco was there, his hand on Harry's shoulder, his presence a comforting anchor. Don't let them get to you, Draco murmured. They don't know you. They don't know anything about who you really are. Harry nodded, forcing himself to breathe. He could feel the crown pulsing beneath his robes, its magic warm and protective. He wasn't alone. He had never been alone. The first stop was Ollivander's wand shop. The old man seemed to sense Harry's presence before he even entered the shop, his pale eyes gleaming with curiosity as the boy stepped through the door. Harry Potter, Ollivander murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I remember your mother's wand. 10¼ inches, willow, swishy. Excellent for charm work. And your father's, mahogany, 11 inches, pliable. Good for transfiguration. He moved through the shelves, his fingers trailing over boxes that seemed to hum with magical energy. But you, Mr. Potter, you are different. The wand chooses the wizard, after all, and I suspect you will require something special. The first wand he offered, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, sent sparks of light shooting across the room. But Ollivander shook his head, his expression troubled. No, he murmured. Not quite right. Too familiar. Too connected to the past. You need something older. He moved deeper into the shop, his fingers dancing over boxes that seemed to glow with ancient magic. And then, with a sharp intake of breath, he pulled down a dusty case that had clearly not been touched in years. 13 inches, he murmured. The core is unusual. A feather from the tail of a serpent that was born in the Chamber of Secrets itself. The wood is the same as the wand of the founder, English oak, tempered with silver. He looked up, his eyes meeting Harry's. This wand has been waiting for 1,000 years, Mr. Potter. Waiting for the true heir. Harry reached out and took the wand. The moment his fingers closed around it, power surged through him, ancient, primal, overwhelming. The crown responded, pulsing with a heat that seemed to spread through his entire body. Curious, Ollivander breathed. Very curious indeed. What is it? Harry asked, his voice hoarse. The crown you wear, Ollivander said, his eyes fixed on the circlet that was suddenly visible beneath Harry's robes. It's responding to the wand. They're connected, part of the same magical legacy. You're not just the heir of Slytherin, are you, Mr. Potter? You're something far more significant. Harry felt the weight of the old man's gaze pressing down on him. I don't know what I am, he admitted. But I'm going to find out. Ollivander nodded slowly, a strange smile playing at the corners of his lips. I think you will, Mr. Potter. I think you will. The rest of the day passed in a blur of shopping and whispers. Lucius guided Harry through the crowded streets, helping him choose his supplies while subtly deflecting the attention of the curious crowd. Draco stayed close, his presence a comforting anchor in the chaos. But Harry couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The wand had responded to him in a way that felt deeply significant, connecting him to the ancient legacy in ways he didn't fully understand. And as they returned to the leaky cauldron, Harry caught a glimpse of his reflection in a shop window. The crown was visible now, its emerald eyes gleaming with inner fire. And for just a moment, Harry could have sworn he saw Salazar Slytherin standing beside him, his green eyes filled with approval. "You are ready," the vision seemed to whisper. The world is waiting. Claim your legacy, Harry Potter. Claim your destiny, Harry touched the crown, feeling the ancient magic surge through him. He was no longer the boy in the cupboard, the orphan, the freak. He was the true heir of Slytherin, the wielder of ancient magic, the one who would change the world. And nothing, not Dumbledore, not Voldemort, not all the forces of darkness in the world, was going to stop him. Chapter 7, Shopping in Diagon Alley. The morning sun cast golden light across the cobblestones of Diagon Alley, illuminating the bustling thoroughfare in a warm, welcoming glow. Harry stood at the entrance to the leaky cauldron, his hand resting on the crown beneath his robes, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Lucius Malfoy stepped through the magical barrier first, his presence immediately drawing the attention of the crowd. Whispers rippled through the alley, "Malfoy. Lucius Malfoy is here." And Harry felt the weight of curious gazes settling on him as he followed. But it was Draco who stepped forward, his hand on Harry's shoulder, his voice low and confident. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "Don't let them see you're nervous. You're the heir of Slytherin. You belong here more than any of them." Harry nodded, squaring his shoulders. He'd spent his entire life being invisible, being nothing. Now, for the first time, he was being seen. And he was determined to make it count. The first shop they visited was Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. The plump witch beamed as they entered, her eyes flickering with recognition when she spotted Lucius. "Mr. Malfoy. What a pleasure to see you again. And young Master Draco, you've grown so tall. And this must be," she paused, her eyes widening as she took in Harry's scar. "Harry Potter. The Harry Potter." Harry felt his cheeks flush. "Yes, ma'am. That's me." Madame Malkin's hands fluttered with excitement. Oh my goodness. Well, we must get you properly fitted, Mr. Potter. Hogwarts robes, I presume. And perhaps something a bit more formal, for special occasions." Lucius stepped forward, his voice smooth and commanding. "My godson will require the finest robes available, Madame Malkin. Money is no object. He must look the part of the heir of Slytherin." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. The other customers in the shop, a portly wizard and his wife, both clearly pure blood, turned to stare, their eyes wide with shock. "The heir of Slytherin?" the wizard breathed. "But that's quite true," Lucius said, his voice carrying across the shop. "Harry Potter is the direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin, confirmed by the goblins at Gringotts and validated by ancient magical tests. The bloodline has been waiting for its true heir for 1,000 years, and now," he placed a hand on Harry's shoulder, "it has found him." The shop erupted into whispers. Harry felt the weight of their gazes, the curiosity and suspicion and awe that accompanied his announcement. But he also felt something else, a surge of pride, of power, of belonging. He was no longer just Harry Potter, the boy who lived. He was Harry Potter, the true heir of Slytherin. And the world was going to know it. Madame Malkin's hands were trembling as she measured Harry for his robes. "I never thought I'd see the day," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "The heir of Slytherin, in my shop. It's an honor, Mr. Potter." Harry smiled, a genuine expression that seemed to surprise the witch. "Thank you, Madam Malkin. I appreciate your kindness." As she bustled away to prepare his robes, Draco leaned in close. "You handled that well," he said approvingly. "The purebloods will be talking about this for weeks." "Let them talk," Harry said. "I'm done hiding. I'm done being invisible. If they want to know who I am, I'll show them." Draco grinned, a mischievous expression that reminded Harry of the boy he'd first met at the zoo. "That's the spirit. Now, let's go find you a wand. Ollivander's is just down the street." Harry felt a shiver of anticipation as they approached the wand shop. He'd seen the ancient building in his dreams, its dusty windows and creaking door a gateway to the magical world. And now, stepping through that door, he felt the weight of 1,000 years pressing down on him. Ollivander was waiting, his pale eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Mr. Potter," he murmured. "I've been expecting you. The wand you require, it has been waiting for a very long time." Harry stepped forward, his heart pounding. "I'm ready." Ollivander moved through the shelves, his fingers trailing over boxes that seemed to hum with magical energy. "Your mother's wand was willow, 10¼ inches, swishy. Excellent for charm work. Your father's was mahogany, 11 inches, pliable. Good for transfiguration." He paused, his eyes meeting Harry's. "But you, Mr. Potter, you are different. The wand must choose the wizard, and I suspect the wand that chooses you will be unique." The first wand he offered, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, sent sparks of light shooting across the room. Harry felt a surge of power, a connection to something ancient and familiar. But Ollivander shook his head, his expression troubled. "No," he murmured. "Not quite right. Too familiar. Too connected to the past. You need something older." He moved deeper into the shop, his fingers dancing over boxes that seemed to glow with ancient magic. And then, with a sharp intake of breath, he pulled down a dusty case that had clearly not been touched in years. 13 inches, he murmured. The core is unusual. A feather from the tail of a serpent that was born in the Chamber of Secrets itself. The wood is the same as the wand of the founder, English oak, tempered with silver. He looked up, his eyes meeting Harry's. "This wand has been waiting for 1,000 years, Mr. Potter. Waiting for the true heir." Harry reached out and took the wand. The moment his fingers closed around it, power surged through him, ancient, primal, overwhelming. The crown responded, pulsing with a heat that seemed to spread through his entire body. The wand burst into light, a brilliant emerald glow that filled the entire shop. Harry felt the magic flowing through him, connecting him to the legacy of Slytherin, to the ancient power that had been waiting for him for centuries. "Curious," Ollivander breathed. "Very curious indeed." "What is it?" Harry asked, his voice hoarse. "The crown you wear," Ollivander said, his eyes fixed on the circlet that was suddenly visible beneath Harry's robes. "It's responding to the wand. They're connected, part of the same magical legacy. You're not just the heir of Slytherin, are you, Mr. Potter? You're something far more significant." Harry felt the weight of the old man's gaze pressing down on him. "I don't know what I am," he admitted. "But I'm going to find out." Ollivander nodded slowly, a strange smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I think you will, Mr. Potter. I think you will." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of shopping and whispers. Harry visited the apothecary, the bookstore, the cauldron shop, each establishment greeted by the news of his identity, each encounter confirming the growing legend that was spreading through Diagon Alley. But it was at the magical menagerie that Harry truly felt the weight of his legacy. The shop was filled with creatures, owls and cats and toads and things that Harry couldn't even name. But as he stepped through the door, his attention was drawn to a single, magnificent creature. A phoenix. The bird was perched on a golden stand, its feathers shimmering with a warm, golden glow. But as Harry approached, the phoenix turned its head, its dark eyes meeting his. And then, impossible, it began to sing. The song was ancient and beautiful, filling the shop with a melody that seemed to touch Harry's very soul. The other customers stopped in their tracks, their faces filled with wonder. Even the creatures in their cages seemed to fall silent, listening to the music of the phoenix. "What is that?" Harry breathed. Lucius's face was pale, his voice barely above a whisper. "That, Harry, is the most powerful magical creature in the world. A phoenix. They only respond to the purest of hearts, to those who are destined for greatness." The phoenix flew from its perch, landing on Harry's shoulder with a weight that felt both heavy and comforting. Its beak brushed against his cheek, and Harry felt a surge of warmth, of magic, of belonging. "It chose you," Draco breathed. "The phoenix chose you." Harry reached up and touched the bird's feathers, feeling the ancient magic pulsing beneath them. He didn't know what it meant, didn't understand why the phoenix had chosen him, but he knew that this was significant. This was destiny. The shopkeeper, a grizzled old wizard named Mr. Pounce, approached with a respectful bow. "You'll need to register with the ministry," he said, his voice trembling with awe. "Phoenixes are rare creatures, Mr. Potter. They only bond with the most powerful of wizards." Harry looked at the phoenix, which seemed to be gazing back at him with an intelligence that was almost human. "What do I call you?" he asked softly. The phoenix trilled, a sound that seemed to echo with ancient meaning. And Harry understood, as if the bird had spoken directly into his mind. "Ember," he said. "I'll call you Ember." The phoenix's feathers flared with golden light, and Harry felt a surge of magic flow through him. He was no longer just Harry Potter, the boy who lived. He was something more, something that the wizarding world had not seen in 1,000 years. The whispers followed them through the rest of their shopping trip, growing louder with each passing moment. "Harry Potter is the heir of Slytherin. A phoenix chose him. He's the one from the prophecies. The Dark Lord should be afraid." By the time they reached the Leaky Cauldron for lunch, the entire alley was buzzing with the news. Harry sat at a corner table, his new wand in his pocket, the phoenix perched on his shoulder, and tried to process everything that had happened. "Are you all right?" Draco asked, his voice filled with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Harry shook his head slowly. "I don't know what I am anymore," he admitted. "I thought I was just a boy who survived a killing curse. But now I'm the heir of Slytherin. I'm the one who can speak to snakes. I'm the one who was chosen by a phoenix. What does that even mean?" Draco reached across the table and gripped his hand. "It means you're special, Harry. It means you have a destiny. And it means you're going to change the world." Harry met his friend's eyes, seeing the sincerity there, the loyalty and friendship that had grown between them over the past few weeks. "I'm afraid," he admitted. "I'm afraid of what's coming." "So am I," Draco said. "But we'll face it together. You, me, and Father. We're a family now, Harry. And families protect each other." Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling that was foreign and wonderful. He had never had a family before, not really. The Dursleys had been his relatives, but they had never loved him. Now, for the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. The phoenix trilled softly, its beak brushing against his ear. And Harry knew, with absolute certainty, that everything was going to be all right. The afternoon brought a new challenge, the Ministry of Magic. Word of Harry's identity had spread quickly, and within hours of his shopping trip, a delegation of ministry officials had arrived at the Leaky Cauldron. They were led by a tall, thin wizard with a bureaucratic expression and a clipboard that seemed to be permanently attached to his hand. "Mr. Potter," the wizard said, his voice carefully neutral. "I am Barnabas Cuff, from the Ministry's Department of Magical Education. We've received reports that you are claiming to be the heir of Slytherin. Is this correct?" Harry felt the crown pulse beneath his robes, its magic warm and protective. "It's not a claim," he said steadily. "It's the truth. The goblins at Gringotts verified it. The wand at Ollivanders recognized it. Even the phoenix," he gestured to Ember, "chose me." Cuff's eyes flickered to the bird, widening slightly. "A phoenix. That's quite remarkable, Mr. Potter. But I'm afraid we'll need more than that. The Ministry has protocols for confirming magical heritage, especially when it comes to claims of direct descent from the founders." Lucius stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "The Ministry has no authority over the ancient bloodlines, Cuff. The laws governing magical heritage were established long before the Ministry was created. Harry Potter has been confirmed by the goblins, by the wand, and by the ancient magic that flows through his veins. There is nothing more to discuss." Cuff's face paled. "Mr. Malfoy, I understand your concern, but the Ministry has a responsibility." "The Ministry has a responsibility to stay out of matters that do not concern it," Lucius interrupted. "Harry Potter is the heir of Slytherin, confirmed by the most ancient and powerful magic in the wizarding world. If the Ministry wishes to contest this claim, they may take it up with the goblins, with Ollivander, with the phoenix that has chosen to bond with the boy. But I warn you, Cuff, this will not end well for you." Cuff swallowed hard, clearly intimidated. I will relay this information to the appropriate departments," he said. "But I must warn you, Mr. Malfoy, there are those in the Ministry who will not take this news well." Lucius smiled, a cold, predatory expression. "Let them come," he said. "They will find that the true heir is not so easily intimidated." The Ministry delegation departed, their tails between their legs. Harry watched them go, feeling a surge of satisfaction that was quickly replaced by a nagging sense of unease. Was that wise? He asked quietly. Antagonizing the Ministry? Lucius placed a hand on his shoulder, his expression warm. "The Ministry has been manipulating the wizarding world for centuries, Harry. They've been hiding the truth about the bloodlines, suppressing the ancient magic, rewriting history to suit their own purposes. They need to be reminded that there are powers in this world that are greater than their bureaucracy." Harry nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Lucius said, "we prepare for Hogwarts. You have been accepted, Harry. Your name is on the rolls. But there are those who will try to stop you, Dumbledore, the Ministry, even the remnants of the Dark Lord's followers. You must be ready for them." Harry squared his shoulders, feeling the crown pulse against his chest. "I am ready," he said. "I was born ready." Lucius smiled, a proud expression that warmed Harry's heart. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." The evening brought a celebration at Malfoy Manor. Harry was surrounded by people who had become his new family, Lucius and Narcissa, Draco and his friends, even the house elves who had helped him prepare for his shopping trip. They feasted on roast chicken and potatoes, on treacle tart and pumpkin juice, and they talked about the future. But through it all, Harry felt the crown's magic pulsing against his skin, reminding him of what he was becoming. He was the heir of Slytherin, the true heir, the one who would change the world. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, the phoenix perched on his bedpost, Harry dreamed of the Chamber of Secrets. He was standing in a vast circular room, its walls adorned with carved serpents that seemed to writhe in the dim light. At the center of the room stood a massive statue, the statue of Salazar Slytherin, its eyes gleaming with a green fire that matched the crown on Harry's head. "You have done well," the statue seemed to whisper. "You have claimed the crown, the wand, the phoenix. But there is more to claim, more to discover, more to become. The chamber awaits you, Harry Potter. It has been waiting for 1,000 years. And now, at last, it is ready to reveal its secrets, **. Harry stepped forward, his hand reaching out to touch the statue's pedestal. And as he did, the floor began to rumble, the walls began to shake, and the serpent carvings began to move. "The chamber is opening," the voice whispered. Asterisk, the true heir is coming. The legacy of Slytherin is awakening, asterisk. Harry woke with a gasp, the phoenix trilling softly beside him. He was drenched in sweat, his heart pounding, the crown's magic pulsing through his veins. The chamber was calling to him. And he was ready to answer. Chapter 8, The Sorting Hat's Shock. The Hogwarts Express billowed steam across platform 9 3/4, its scarlet engine gleaming in the morning light. Harry stood at the edge of the platform, his trunk packed, his wand in his pocket, the serpent crown hidden beneath his robes. Ember perched on his shoulder, her golden feathers shimmering with an inner light that drew curious glances from the passing students. "Are you ready?" Draco asked, his voice barely audible above the noise of the crowd. Harry nodded, though his heart was pounding. He'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, learning about the wizarding world, practicing spells, studying the ancient texts that Lucius had provided. But nothing could have prepared him for the reality of standing on the platform, about to board the train that would take him to his destiny. "I'm ready," he said, and the words felt truer than anything he'd ever said before. Lucius stepped forward, his expression grave. "Remember what I told you, Harry. Dumbledore will try to manipulate you. The Ministry will try to control you. Even some of the professors may be hostile. But you have the crown, the wand, the phoenix. You have the blood of the founders flowing through your veins. You are stronger than any of them." Harry met the older wizard's eyes, seeing the concern and hope and pride that flickered there. "I won't forget," he promised. "I'll make you proud." Lucius smiled, a warm expression that transformed his aristocratic features. "You already have, Harry. You already have." Narcissa embraced him, her perfume enveloping him in a familiar, comforting scent. "Be careful," she whispered. "And write to us. Every week." "I will," Harry promised. "I promise." Draco was already on the train, his face pressed against the window, gesturing for Harry to join him. Harry said his goodbyes and climbed aboard, the phoenix fluttering to perch on the luggage rack above his seat. The compartment was small but comfortable, with plush seats and a window that offered a view of the passing countryside. Draco sat across from him, his expression a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Did you see them?" Draco asked. "The other students?" "They were staring at you. At your scar. At the phoenix." Harry shrugged. "Let them stare. I'm not hiding anymore." The train lurched into motion, and Harry felt a surge of excitement that quickly gave way to nervous anticipation. He was finally on his way to Hogwarts. Finally going to discover the truth about his parents, his heritage, his destiny. The journey passed in a blur of conversation and shared snacks. Draco introduced him to his friends, Blaise Zabini, a dark-skinned boy with a sharp intelligence in his eyes, Theodore Knott, quiet and watchful, Pansy Parkinson, who seemed to have appointed herself Draco's unofficial guardian. They accepted Harry without question, their loyalty to Draco extending to his new friend. But Harry couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The crown pulsed gently against his chest, its magic warm and reassuring. Ember trilled softly, her head cocked as if listening to something that Harry couldn't hear. "What is it?" Draco asked, noticing his friend's distraction. Harry shook his head. "I don't know. Something feels different. Like the magic is building." Draco's eyes widened. "The chamber. You think it's the chamber calling to you?" Before Harry could answer, the train began to slow. The compartment door slid open, revealing a girl with bushy brown hair and a look of intense curiosity. "Excuse me," she said, "have any of you seen a toad? A boy named Neville has lost one." Harry shook his head, but something about the girl caught his attention. There was a power about her, a fierce intelligence that reminded him of the descriptions of his mother. "I'm Hermione Granger," she said, extending her hand. "I've read all about you, Harry Potter. You're the boy who lived. And she paused, her eyes widening, is that a phoenix? That's incredibly rare. They only bond with the most powerful wizards. Harry felt himself blushing. It's a long story. Hermione's eyes flickered to his forehead, where his scar was partially visible beneath his hair. I'm sure it is. Well, I'd better find Neville's toad. Nice to meet you, Harry. She disappeared down the corridor, leaving Harry feeling both amused and slightly intimidated. Bookish, Draco said dismissively. Muggle-born, I expect. She won't last in Slytherin. Harry shook his head. I don't think it matters where she comes from. She's got fire. I can see it. The train arrived at Hogsmeade Station as dusk was falling. Harry and Draco disembarked, joining the throng of students making their way toward the horseless carriages that would carry them to the castle. But as Harry approached the first carriage, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. Strange, skeletal creatures were tethered to the carriages, creatures that seemed to be made of nothing but bones and leathery skin, their wings folded against their bodies. Thestrals, Draco said, noting Harry's expression. They're invisible to most people. You can only see them if you've witnessed death. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. He'd witnessed death. He'd seen his parents die, had watched as the green light of the killing curse had taken them from him. He'd been too young to remember it consciously, but the magic had imprinted itself on his soul. I can see them, he said quietly. I can see them clearly. Draco was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Let's go, he said. The castle is waiting. The ride to Hogwarts was magical in every sense of the word. The carriages glided through the darkness, past the twinkling lights of Hogsmeade, through the gates of the castle itself. And then, as they rounded a bend in the path, Hogwarts rose before them. It was magnificent. Towers and turrets stretched toward the sky, their windows blazing with candlelight. The castle seemed to pulse with ancient magic, its stones humming with a power that Harry could feel in his very bones. The crown responded, pulsing against his chest. Ember trilled softly, her feathers ruffling with excitement. And Harry knew, in that moment, that he had come home. The great hall was even more impressive than Harry had imagined. Thousands of candles floated above the 4 long tables, their flames casting a warm, golden light across the room. The ceiling was enchanted to look like the night sky, stars twinkling in a field of velvet darkness. But what caught Harry's attention was the sorting hat. The old, battered hat sat on a stool at the front of the hall, its fabric worn and patched, its brim folded in a way that almost looked like a face. Harry felt a shiver of anticipation as he watched the first-year students line up, their faces pale with nervousness. Harry, Draco whispered, you'll be sorted into Slytherin. I know it. The hat will see what I see, the ambition, the cunning, the blood of the founder flowing through your veins. Harry nodded, though he wasn't so sure. He'd heard the whispers about Slytherin, the way the other houses viewed them with suspicion and fear. Would the hat really place him in the house of the man whose blood he carried? Or would it see something else, something more complex? The first names were called, Abbott, Bones, Brocklehurst. Each student walked to the stool, placed the hat on their heads, and waited for the judgment that would define their Hogwarts experience. Bletchley, Miles. Slytherin. Finch-Fletchley, Justin. Hufflepuff. And then, finally, Granger, Hermione. Harry watched as Hermione Granger, the girl from the train, walked confidently to the stool. The hat barely touched her head before it shouted, Gryffindor. Harry felt a twinge of disappointment. He'd seen something in Hermione, a fire that reminded him of his mother. But Gryffindor was the house of the brave, the house of Godric Gryffindor himself. Maybe that was where she belonged. The list continued, and Harry's nervousness grew with each passing name. He could feel the crown pulsing against his chest, its magic rising in response to the ancient magic of the castle. Longbottom, Neville. The boy who had lost his toad stumbled forward, his face pale with terror. He placed the hat on his head, and the fabric seemed to swallow his entire face. The hat was silent for a long moment. Then, with a reluctant shout, "Gryffindor." Neville shuffled to the Gryffindor table, looking as if he'd just been sentenced to death. And then, finally, "Potter, Harry." The hall fell silent. Harry felt the weight of 1,000 gazes pressing down on him as he walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the sudden stillness. He reached the stool, sat down, and placed the hat on his head. The last thing he saw before the hat covered his eyes was Dumbledore's face, old, wise, and filled with something that might have been concern. And then, the hat began to speak. "Ah," it murmured, its voice echoing in his mind. "Harry Potter. I've been waiting for you. So much power, so much potential. And such a burden to carry." Harry felt the hat's magic probing his mind, sifting through his memories and desires and fears. He saw his parents' deaths, his childhood with the Dursleys, his discovery of the wizarding world. He saw Lucius and Narcissa, Draco and Ember, the crown and the wand and the ancient magic that flowed through his veins. "Extraordinary," the hat breathed. "Truly extraordinary. I've sorted thousands of students, Harry Potter, but I've never encountered a mind quite like yours. You carry the blood of the founders, the ambition of Slytherin, the courage of Gryffindor, the intelligence of Ravenclaw, and the loyalty of Hufflepuff, all in equal measure." "What does that mean?" Harry asked, his thoughts racing. "What do I choose?" The hat chuckled, a warm, welcoming sound. "You don't choose, Harry. I choose. And I must say, this is perhaps the most difficult decision I've ever had to make." Harry felt the crown pulsing against his chest, its magic rising to meet the hat's. The ancient artifact seemed to be speaking to the Sorting Hat, communicating in a language that Harry couldn't quite understand. "Ah," the hat said softly. "So that's it. The blood remembers. The legacy awakens. You carry the crown of Salazar Slytherin, and the serpent responds to your call. There is no question, Harry Potter. There is only destiny." And then, in a voice that echoed through the entire hall, "Slytherin." The silence that followed was deafening. Harry could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears as he removed the hat and turned to face the assembled students. The Slytherin table erupted in applause, the students rising to their feet with cheers and whoops of approval. Draco was grinning, his face flushed with pride. The other Slytherins were staring at Harry with a mixture of awe and respect. But the rest of the hall was silent. The Gryffindors looked shocked, their faces pale with disbelief. The Ravenclaws whispered among themselves, their expressions curious. And the Hufflepuffs, they looked almost betrayed, as if Harry had personally let them down. Harry made his way to the Slytherin table, sliding into the seat beside Draco. The applause continued, and Harry felt the crown's magic pulsing against his chest, a warm, reassuring presence. "You did it," Draco breathed. "You actually did it. You're a Slytherin." Harry nodded, though his mind was racing. He'd known he would be sorted into Slytherin, the crown, the legacy, the bloodline all pointed to it. But actually being here, surrounded by the green and silver of his new house, felt surreal. "Harry Potter," a voice drawled from across the table. "The boy who lived. The heir of Slytherin. And now, a Slytherin yourself. How appropriate." Harry looked up to see an older boy staring at him, his eyes cold and calculating. Marcus Flint, Harry remembered, the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team, a boy with a reputation for ruthlessness. "The hat chose me," Harry said evenly. "I didn't ask for this." Flint laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "No one asks for their legacy, Potter. They just have to live up to it. And you," he leaned forward, his eyes gleaming, "you have a lot to live up to." Harry felt the crown pulse, its magic rising in response to the challenge. I'm not afraid of the legacy, Flint, he said steadily. I'm not afraid of anything. The older boy's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of respect crossing his face. Good, he said. You'll need that spine in Slytherin. We don't coddle our members. We forge them. Harry nodded, returning his attention to the feast that had appeared before him. But his mind was elsewhere, focused on the ancient magic that pulsed through the castle, the legacy that he had just claimed by taking his place at the Slytherin table. He was the true heir of Slytherin. He was the one who would change the world. But first, he had to survive Hogwarts. And if the looks on some of the professors' faces were any indication, that would be harder than he'd ever expected. Professor McGonagall was staring at him, her expression unreadable. Snape looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. And Dumbledore's eyes were fixed on Harry with an intensity that made him feel like the old man was looking straight through his soul. The game has begun, the crown seemed to whisper. Asterisk, and you are the player, Harry Potter. You are the one who will win the game, asterisk. Harry smiled, a small, private expression that no one else could see. He had the crown. He had the wand. He had the phoenix. And he had the blood of the founders flowing through his veins. He was ready for whatever came next. The feast concluded, and Harry followed his new housemates down to the Slytherin common room. The entrance was hidden behind a stone wall, which opened at the password, Pure Blood, to reveal a room that seemed carved from the depths of the lake. Water shimmered through the windows, casting shifting patterns of green and silver across the room. The furniture was elegant and comfortable, with soft armchairs and velvet sofas. A fire crackled in the hearth, its flames dancing in the glassy reflections. Welcome to Slytherin, Draco said, gesturing around the room. It's not much, but it's home. Harry felt the crown pulse against his chest, its magic responding to the ancient wards that protected the common room. He was home. Finally, truly home. The boys' dormitory was small but comfortable, with four-poster beds draped in green silk curtains. Harry claimed the bed nearest the window, the one with the best view of the lake. Ember perched on the headboard, her golden feathers glowing in the dim light. Sleep well, Harry, Draco said, his voice already thick with exhaustion. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Harry nodded, but he couldn't sleep. The crown was pulsing, its magic rising in response to the ancient magic of the castle. And through the connection, Harry could feel something else, a presence, deep beneath the castle, waiting for him. The Chamber of Secrets was calling to him. And he was ready to answer. Chapter 9, Prince of Serpents. The first morning at Hogwarts dawned grey and misty, the lake's surface rippling with the movements of creatures that Harry could now sense through the crown's connection. He woke before the others, the ancient magic thrumming through his veins like a second heartbeat, the crown's emerald eyes pulsing gently against his chest. Draco stirred in the bed beside him, his grey eyes blinking open with the slow reluctance of someone who had never been forced to rise early for chores. Harry? What time is it? Early, Harry said. Already pulling on his robes. I want to explore before breakfast. The castle is calling to me. Draco sat up, suddenly alert. The chamber? Can you feel it? Harry nodded, his hand pressed against the crown. It's deep beneath the castle, ancient and powerful. I can feel it pulsing, like a heartbeat. It knows I'm here. It's waiting for me. Draco scrambled out of bed, his sleepiness forgotten. Then we should go. Now. Before anyone notices we're gone. They crept through the common room, past the sleeping portraits and the dying embers of the fire. The password came easily to Harry's lips, the words flowing from the ancient magic that now lived within him. Slytherin, he whispered, and the entrance slid open. The corridors were empty at this hour, the castle still shrouded in the pre-dawn darkness. Harry led the way, his footsteps guided by the crown's pulse, the ancient magic drawing him deeper and deeper into the bowels of the castle. This way, he murmured, turning down a corridor that seemed to have been forgotten by time. The torches here were unlit, the stones covered in cobwebs, the air thick with dust and ancient magic. "Harry," Draco whispered, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't think we're supposed to be here. This area feels forbidden." Harry didn't stop. "The crown is pulling me," he said. "It wants me to find something. Something important." They descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, the steps worn smooth by centuries of use. At the bottom, they found a door carved from obsidian, its surface covered in serpentine runes that seemed to writhe in the dim light. Harry reached out and touched the door. The runes flared to life, glowing with an emerald light that matched the crown's eyes. And then, with a grinding sound that echoed through the corridor, the door swung open. Beyond it lay a chamber that Harry had seen in his dreams. The walls were lined with carved serpents, their eyes gleaming with ancient magic. A massive fountain stood at the center, its water flowing through channels that seemed to form the shape of a coiled serpent. "The chamber," Harry breathed. "The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets." Draco's face was pale. "But the entrance is in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Everyone knows that. How can we be here?" "The legend was a lie," Harry said, his voice filled with certainty. "Salazar built multiple entrances, each accessible only to the true heir. This is one of them. The crown led me here." He stepped forward, his hand outstretched toward the fountain. The water swirled, forming shapes that danced in the air. And then, from the depths of the fountain, a massive serpent rose. Draco gasped, stumbling backward. But Harry stood his ground, his hand on the crown, his heart steady. "Heir," the serpent hissed, its voice echoing with ancient power. "We have been waiting for you. For 1,000 years, we have waited. The chamber knows you. The blood recognizes you. You are the one we have been guarding." Harry felt the crown pulse, its magic surging through him. "I am the heir," he said, the words flowing from the ancient magic. "I have come to claim what is rightfully mine." The serpent lowered its head, a gesture of submission. "Then enter, heir. The chamber awaits. But be warned, only the true heir may pass. Any other will be destroyed." Harry turned to Draco, his expression serious. "Wait here," he said. "I have to do this alone." Draco shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. "No. I'm coming with you. Father said I should protect you." "This is my legacy, Draco," Harry said gently. "I have to claim it for myself. But I'll be back. I promise." Draco hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Be careful," he said. "And come back to me." Harry smiled, a warm expression that surprised even himself. "I will." He turned and stepped forward, the serpent parting to reveal a passage that led deeper into the earth. The walls were lined with torches that flared to life as he passed, their flames casting dancing shadows across the ancient stones. The passage opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in darkness. At its center stood a massive statue, Salazar Slytherin himself, carved from obsidian, his eyes gleaming with green fire. "Salazar," Harry breathed, approaching the statue. "I have come to claim my legacy." The statue's eyes flared, and a voice echoed through the cavern, ancient, powerful, filled with authority. "You are the heir. The crown recognizes you. The blood flows through your veins. But you must prove yourself worthy of the legacy you seek." Harry squared his shoulders, feeling the crown pulse against his chest. "I am ready. Test me." The statue's eyes blazed, and the cavern around Harry transformed. He was standing in a vast library, surrounded by books that seemed to stretch into infinity. At the center of the library, a pedestal rose, and upon it rested a single, leather-bound tome. "The Book of Slytherin," the voice echoed. "It contains the knowledge of the founder, the secrets of the ancient magic, the truth about the bloodline. To claim it, you must answer 3 questions. Answer correctly, and the book is yours. Answer wrongly, and you will be destroyed. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. I understand. Ask your questions. The first question appeared in the air before him, written in letters of fire. What is the greatest strength of a true heir? Harry thought for a moment, his mind racing. The ability to adapt, he said finally. To change, to grow, to learn from the past without being trapped by it. A true heir must be able to evolve. The fire letters flared, then faded. Correct. The second question, what is the greatest weakness of a false heir? Harry's answer came immediately. Pride. The belief that power is an end in itself, that blood is more important than character, that the past should be preserved without question. A false heir is trapped by their own arrogance. Correct. The final question. What will you sacrifice to claim your legacy? Harry felt the weight of the question pressing down on him. Everything, he said, his voice steady. I will sacrifice everything, my pride, my comfort, even my life, to claim what is rightfully mine. Because I am not just claiming it for myself. I am claiming it for everyone who has been denied their birthright, everyone who has been told they are not worthy. I am claiming it for the future. The fire letters blazed, brighter than ever before. And then, with a sound like thunder, the library dissolved. Harry was back in the cavern, the statue looming before him, the book resting in his hands. You have passed the test, heir, the voice said, filled with approval. You are worthy of the legacy. Claim your birthright, Harry Potter. Claim the power that is rightfully yours. Harry opened the book, and the knowledge flowed into him, ancient spells, forgotten histories, the secrets of the founders. He saw the construction of Hogwarts, the founding of the four houses, the battles and betrayals that had shaped the wizarding world. He saw Salazar Slytherin as he truly was, not the monster of legend, but a man who had tried to protect his world, who had made mistakes and sought to correct them. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic pulsing through him, connecting him to the ancient power, to the legacy that was now his. He closed the book, his heart full. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for this gift. The statue's eyes flared one last time. You are worthy, heir. Now go. There is much to do. The world is waiting for you. Harry emerged from the passage to find Draco pacing nervously by the fountain. The serpent had returned to its hiding place, the water still and calm. Harry! Draco exclaimed, rushing forward. Are you all right? What happened? Harry smiled, a tired but happy expression. I passed the test, he said. I claimed the legacy. The Book of Slytherin is mine. Draco's eyes widened. The Book of Slytherin. I thought it was a myth. I thought it had been lost centuries ago. It was, Harry said. But it was waiting for me. Just like everything else. They made their way back through the castle, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The sun was rising now, casting golden light through the windows, warming the ancient stones. In the great hall, the other students were already gathering for breakfast. Harry and Draco slipped in just as the doors were opening, taking their places at the Slytherin table. Where were you? Pansy asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. You look like you've been exploring. Harry shrugged, his expression carefully neutral. Couldn't sleep. We went for a walk. Pansy didn't look convinced, but she let the subject drop. The other Slytherins were watching Harry with a new respect, the whispers of his sorting still echoing through the common room. You've become a celebrity, Blaise murmured, leaning in close. The heir of Slytherin, sorted into Slytherin. Everyone is talking about you. Let them talk, Harry said. I have nothing to hide. But that wasn't entirely true. He had the Book of Slytherin hidden beneath his robes, the crown pulsing against his chest, the knowledge of the ancient magic flowing through his veins. He had secrets that could change the wizarding world. And he had a destiny to fulfill. The first week of classes was a whirlwind of new experiences. Harry excelled in potions, his ancient knowledge giving him an edge that even Professor Snape couldn't ignore. He was equally skilled in transfiguration, charms, and defense against the dark arts, the magic coming naturally to him, as if it had been waiting for him all along. But it was in the corridors, in the whispers of the students, that Harry truly found his footing. The Slytherins had accepted him, their initial suspicion giving way to respect as he demonstrated his knowledge and power. The other houses were more cautious, watching him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. And through it all, Harry felt the crown's magic growing stronger, connecting him to the ancient wards of Hogwarts, to the legacy that was now his. Harry Potter. The voice came from behind him, soft and dangerous. Harry turned to find a tall, dark-haired boy watching him from the shadows of the corridor. His eyes were cold, his expression unreadable. "Who are you?" Harry asked, his hand moving instinctively to his wand. The boy smiled, a thin, calculating expression. "My name is Blaise Zabini. I'm a 7th year. And I've been watching you, Potter. You're interesting. More interesting than I expected." Harry felt the crown pulse, its magic rising in response to the older boy's presence. "What do you want?" Zabini stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I want to offer you an alliance. The pureblood families are divided, Potter. Some support the old ways, the Dark Lord's vision. Others are looking for something new. Something better. And you," he paused, his eyes gleaming, "you could be the leader they've been waiting for." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "I'm not interested in leading anyone. I'm just trying to survive." Zabini laughed, a soft, humorless sound. "Survival is not enough for someone like you, Potter. You are the heir of Slytherin. You carry the blood of the founders. You are destined for greatness. The question is, will you embrace that destiny, or will you let it consume you?" Harry met the older boy's eyes, his own gaze steady. "I'll decide my own path, Zabini. No one else." Zabini inclined his head, a gesture of respect. "We'll see, Potter. We'll see." He disappeared into the shadows, leaving Harry alone in the corridor. The crown was pulsing, its magic warm and protective. Harry touched it, feeling the ancient power flow through him. He was the heir of Slytherin. He was the one who would change the world. But he would do it on his own terms, in his own time. And nothing, not Zabini, not Dumbledore, not even Voldemort, was going to stop him. The weeks that followed were a carefully managed balancing act. Harry navigated the treacherous waters of Slytherin politics, forming alliances and deflecting rivals with a skill that surprised even himself. The Book of Slytherin had given him a wealth of knowledge about the ancient bloodlines, the old families, the hidden power structures that underpinned the wizarding world. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic growing, connecting him to the ancient wards of Hogwarts, to the legacy that was now his. But it was the dreams that truly unsettled him. Every night, he dreamed of the chamber. Of Salazar's statue, its eyes blazing with green fire. Of the serpent that guarded the entrance, its voice echoing through the caverns. Of the Book of Slytherin, its pages filled with secrets that could change the world. And in the dreams, Harry heard a voice, ancient, powerful, filled with urgency. The time is coming, heir. The chamber calls to you. You must answer. You must claim what is rightfully yours, Harry woke each morning with the crown pulsing against his chest, the ancient magic flowing through his veins. He knew what he had to do. He had to enter the Chamber of Secrets, to claim the legacy that was waiting for him. But he also knew that the entrance was guarded by Dumbledore's magic, by the ancient protections that had been placed on the castle. To enter the chamber, he would have to find a way past them. It was Draco who gave him the solution. "I've been researching the castle's history," Draco said one evening, his voice low. "The chamber has multiple entrances, Harry. Not just the one in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. There's another entrance, older, more secret. It's hidden in the Forbidden Forest. Harry felt a surge of excitement. The Forbidden Forest? That's dangerous. Draco nodded, his expression serious. Extremely dangerous. But the crown will protect you. And I'll be with you. We'll face whatever comes. Together. Harry looked at his friend, seeing the loyalty and courage in his eyes. Thank you, he said softly. I don't know what I'd do without you. Draco smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his aristocratic features. You'll never have to find out, Harry. I'm with you. Always. The expedition to the Forbidden Forest was planned with military precision. Harry and Draco slipped out of the castle after midnight, their footsteps silent in the darkness. The crown pulsed against Harry's chest, guiding their path through the ancient trees. Are you sure this is the way? Draco whispered, his voice barely audible. Harry nodded, his eyes fixed on a point in the distance. The crown is pulling me. There's something ahead. Something important. They pushed through the underbrush, past ancient oaks and gnarled willows. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the hoot of owls, the distant howl of something that might have been a wolf. And then, through the trees, Harry saw it. A cave, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of ivy. The crown flared, its magic surging through him. This is it, he breathed. The entrance to the chamber. Draco moved forward, his wand raised. I'll go first. I'll make sure it's safe. Harry shook his head. No. This is my legacy. I have to do this myself. Draco hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Be careful, Harry. And come back to me. Harry smiled, a warm expression that surprised even himself. I will. I promise. He pushed through the ivy and entered the cave. The walls were lined with carved serpents, their eyes gleaming with ancient magic. A winding path led deeper into the earth, and Harry followed it, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. The path opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center stood a massive statue, Salazar Slytherin, carved from obsidian, his eyes blazing with green fire. Salazar, Harry breathed, approaching the statue. I have come to claim my legacy. The statue's eyes flared, and a voice echoed through the chamber, ancient, powerful, filled with authority. You have proven yourself worthy, Heir. The chamber is yours. The legacy is yours. Claim it, Harry Potter. Claim it and change the world. Harry felt the crown pulse against his chest, its magic surging through him. He reached out and touched the statue's pedestal, and the world exploded around him. He saw the history of the wizarding world, the founding of Hogwarts, the battles of the founders, the rise and fall of the old bloodlines. He saw Salazar Slytherin as he truly was, a man who had tried to protect his world, who had made mistakes and sought to correct them. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic flowing through him, connecting him to the ancient power, to the legacy that was now his. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in the same chamber, the statue looming before him. But something had changed. The crown was warm against his chest, its magic pulsing in time with his heartbeat. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was ready. He was the true heir of Slytherin. And the world would never be the same. Chapter 10, The Chamber Calls. The dreams had grown more insistent, more urgent with each passing night. Harry would close his eyes and find himself standing in the vast cavern beneath Hogwarts, the statue of Salazar Slytherin towering before him, its obsidian eyes blazing with green fire. And always, the voice, ancient, powerful, filled with a longing that seemed to stretch across centuries. Come, Heir. The chamber is ready. The legacy awaits. You must claim what is rightfully yours, Harry woke each morning with the serpent crown pulsing against his chest, its magic thrumming through his veins like a second heartbeat. The ancient artifact had grown more responsive since his arrival at Hogwarts, its power intertwining with the ancient wards of the castle itself. He could feel the magic pulsing through the stones, through the very air he breathed, ancient, protective, waiting. "You've been having the dreams again," Draco observed one morning, his grey eyes sharp with concern. "You were talking in your sleep. Something about the chamber." Harry nodded, rubbing his temples. "It's getting stronger. The call. I can feel it pulling me, even when I'm awake. It's like a physical tug, right in my chest." Draco's expression grew troubled. "Father warned me this might happen. The legacy of Slytherin is powerful, Harry. It doesn't just sit idly, waiting to be claimed. It actively seeks out its heir, drawing them closer, testing their resolve." "I know," Harry said quietly. "But I don't think I can resist it much longer. The crown, it's like it has a mind of its own. It wants me to go to the chamber. It needs me to go." Draco reached out and gripped his shoulder. "Then we'll go together. Tonight. Whatever's waiting for you down there, we'll face it as a team." Harry felt a surge of warmth at his friend's loyalty. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Draco." "Probably get yourself killed," Draco said with a slight smile. "So it's fortunate that I'm here to keep you out of trouble." The day passed in a blur of classes and whispers. Harry's reputation had grown since the sorting, the Slytherins treating him with a mixture of awe and respect that bordered on reverence. The other houses were more cautious, watching him with suspicion, as if they expected the heir of Slytherin to unleash some ancient horror at any moment. But through it all, Harry felt the crown's magic pulsing, growing stronger as the sun began to set. The call was becoming impossible to ignore, a physical presence that seemed to wrap around him, drawing him inexorably toward the depths of the castle. "Meet me in the common room at midnight," Harry murmured to Draco as they left the great hall. "I'll have everything ready." Draco nodded, his expression serious. "Be careful, Harry. And don't do anything foolish before I get there." Harry smiled, a tired but genuine expression. "I'll try." The hours until midnight crept by with agonizing slowness. Harry lay in his bed, the crown pulsing against his chest, the call of the chamber echoing through his mind. He could feel it, ancient, powerful, urgent, like a heartbeat that was slowly growing faster. And then, at last, the clock struck 12. Harry slipped out of bed, his movements silent and practiced. The crown glowed faintly beneath his robes, its emerald light casting eerie shadows across the dormitory walls. He crept through the common room, past the dying embers of the fire, and found Draco waiting by the entrance. "Ready?" Draco whispered, his wand raised. Harry nodded, his hand pressed against the crown. "Ready." The corridors were empty at this hour, the castle shrouded in silence. Harry led the way, his footsteps guided by the crown's pulse, the ancient magic drawing him deeper and deeper into the bowels of Hogwarts. "This way," he murmured, turning down a passage that seemed to have been forgotten by time. The torches here were unlit, the stones covered in cobwebs, the air thick with dust and ancient magic. "Harry," Draco whispered, his voice trembling slightly, "I've never seen this part of the castle before. It's not on any of the maps." "The crown is showing me the way," Harry said. "It knows where the chamber is. It's been waiting for me to find it." They descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, the steps worn smooth by centuries of use. At the bottom, they found a door carved from obsidian, its surface covered in serpentine runes that writhed in the dim light. Harry reached out and touched the door. The runes flared to life, glowing with an emerald light that matched the crown's eyes. And then, with a grinding sound that echoed through the corridor, the door swung open. Beyond it lay a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. The walls were lined with carved serpents, their eyes gleaming with ancient magic. A massive fountain stood at the center, its water flowing through channels that seemed to form the shape of a coiled serpent. "The chamber," Harry breathed. "The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets." Draco's face was pale. But the entrance is in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Everyone knows that. How can we be here? The legend was a lie, Harry said, his voice filled with certainty. Salazar built multiple entrances, each accessible only to the true heir. This is one of them. The crown led me here. He stepped forward, his hand outstretched toward the fountain. The water swirled, forming shapes that danced in the air. And then, from the depths of the fountain, a massive serpent rose. Draco gasped, stumbling backward. But Harry stood his ground, his hand on the crown, his heart steady. Heir, the serpent hissed, its voice echoing with ancient power. We have been waiting for you. For 1,000 years, we have waited. The chamber knows you. The blood recognizes you. You are the one we have been guarding. Harry felt the crown pulse, its magic surging through him. I am the heir, he said, the words flowing from the ancient magic. I have come to claim what is rightfully mine. The serpent lowered its head, a gesture of submission. Then enter, heir. The chamber awaits. But be warned, only the true heir may pass. Any other will be destroyed. Harry turned to Draco, his expression serious. Wait here, he said. I have to do this alone. Draco shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. No. I'm coming with you. Father said I should protect you. This is my legacy, Draco, Harry said gently. I have to claim it for myself. But I'll be back. I promise. Draco hesitated, then nodded slowly. Be careful, he said. And come back to me. Harry smiled, a warm expression that surprised even himself. I will. He turned and stepped forward, the serpent parting to reveal a passage that led deeper into the earth. The walls were lined with torches that flared to life as he passed, their flames casting dancing shadows across the ancient stones. The passage opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in darkness. At its center stood a massive statue, Salazar Slytherin himself, carved from obsidian, his eyes gleaming with green fire. Salazar, Harry breathed, approaching the statue. I have come to claim my legacy. The statue's eyes flared, and a voice echoed through the cavern, ancient, powerful, filled with authority. You are the heir. The crown recognizes you. The blood flows through your veins. But you must prove yourself worthy of the legacy you seek. Harry squared his shoulders, feeling the crown pulse against his chest. I am ready. Test me. The statue's eyes blazed, and the cavern around Harry transformed. He was standing in a vast library, surrounded by books that seemed to stretch into infinity. At the center of the library, a pedestal rose, and upon it rested a single, leather-bound tome. The Book of Slytherin, the voice echoed. It contains the knowledge of the founder, the secrets of the ancient magic, the truth about the bloodline. To claim it, you must answer 3 questions. Answer correctly, and the book is yours. Answer wrongly, and you will be destroyed. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. I understand. Ask your questions. The first question appeared in the air before him, written in letters of fire. What is the greatest strength of a true heir? Harry thought for a moment, his mind racing. The ability to adapt, he said finally. To change, to grow, to learn from the past without being trapped by it. A true heir must be able to evolve. The fire letters flared, then faded. Correct. The second question, what is the greatest weakness of a false heir? Harry's answer came immediately. Pride. The belief that power is an end in itself, that blood is more important than character, that the past should be preserved without question. A false heir is trapped by their own arrogance. Correct. The final question, what will you sacrifice to claim your legacy? Harry felt the weight of the question pressing down on him. Everything, he said, his voice steady. I will sacrifice everything, my pride, my comfort, even my life, to claim what is rightfully mine. Because I am not just claiming it for myself. I am claiming it for everyone who has been denied their birthright, everyone who has been told they are not worthy. I am claiming it for the future. The fire letters blazed, brighter than ever before. And then, with a sound like thunder, the library dissolved. Harry was back in the cavern, the statue looming before him, the book resting in his hands. You have passed the test, Heir, the voice said, filled with approval. You are worthy of the legacy. Claim your birthright, Harry Potter. Claim the power that is rightfully yours. Harry opened the book, and the knowledge flowed into him, ancient spells, forgotten histories, the secrets of the founders. He saw the construction of Hogwarts, the founding of the four houses, the battles and betrayals that had shaped the wizarding world. He saw Salazar Slytherin as he truly was, not the monster of legend, but a man who had tried to protect his world, who had made mistakes and sought to correct them. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic pulsing through him, connecting him to the ancient power, to the legacy that was now his. He closed the book, his heart full. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for this gift. The statue's eyes flared one last time. You are worthy, Heir. Now go. There is much to do. The world is waiting for you. Harry emerged from the passage to find Draco pacing nervously by the fountain. The serpent had returned to its hiding place, the water still and calm. Harry! Draco exclaimed, rushing forward. Are you all right? What happened? Harry smiled, a tired but happy expression. I passed the test, he said. I claimed the legacy. The Book of Slytherin is mine. Draco's eyes widened. The Book of Slytherin? I thought it was a myth. I thought it had been lost centuries ago. It was, Harry said. But it was waiting for me. Just like everything else. They made their way back through the castle, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The sun was rising now, casting golden light through the windows, warming the ancient stones. In the great hall, the other students were already gathering for breakfast. Harry and Draco slipped in just as the doors were opening, taking their places at the Slytherin table. Where were you? Pansy asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. You look like you've been exploring. Harry shrugged, his expression carefully neutral. Couldn't sleep. We went for a walk. Pansy didn't look convinced, but she let the subject drop. The other Slytherins were watching Harry with a new respect, the whispers of his sorting still echoing through the common room. You've become a celebrity, Blaise murmured, leaning in close. The heir of Slytherin, sorted into Slytherin. Everyone is talking about you. Let them talk, Harry said. I have nothing to hide. But that wasn't entirely true. He had the Book of Slytherin hidden beneath his robes, the crown pulsing against his chest, the knowledge of the ancient magic flowing through his veins. He had secrets that could change the wizarding world. And he had a destiny to fulfill. The days that followed were a carefully managed balancing act. Harry navigated the treacherous waters of Slytherin politics, forming alliances and deflecting rivals with a skill that surprised even himself. The Book of Slytherin had given him a wealth of knowledge about the ancient bloodlines, the old families, the hidden power structures that underpinned the wizarding world. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic growing, connecting him to the ancient wards of Hogwarts, to the legacy that was now his. But it was the dreams that truly unsettled him. Every night, he dreamed of the chamber. Of Salazar's statue, its eyes blazing with green fire. Of the serpent that guarded the entrance, its voice echoing through the caverns. Of the Book of Slytherin, its pages filled with secrets that could change the world. And in the dreams, Harry heard a voice, ancient, powerful, filled with urgency. The time is coming, heir. The chamber calls to you. You must answer. You must claim what is rightfully yours, Harry woke each morning with the crown pulsing against his chest, the ancient magic flowing through his veins. He knew what he had to do. He had to enter the Chamber of Secrets, to claim the legacy that was waiting for him. But he also knew that the entrance was guarded by Dumbledore's magic, by the ancient protections that had been placed on the castle. To enter the chamber, he would have to find a way past them. It was Draco who gave him the solution. "I've been researching the castle's history," Draco said one evening, his voice low. "The chamber has multiple entrances, Harry. Not just the one in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. There's another entrance, older, more secret. It's hidden in the Forbidden Forest." Harry felt a surge of excitement. The Forbidden Forest? That's dangerous. Draco nodded, his expression serious. Extremely dangerous. But the crown will protect you. And I'll be with you. We'll face whatever comes together. Harry looked at his friend, seeing the loyalty and courage in his eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Draco smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his aristocratic features. "You'll never have to find out, Harry. I'm with you. Always." The expedition to the Forbidden Forest was planned with military precision. Harry and Draco slipped out of the castle after midnight, their footsteps silent in the darkness. The crown pulsed against Harry's chest, guiding their path through the ancient trees. "Are you sure this is the way?" Draco whispered, his voice barely audible. Harry nodded, his eyes fixed on a point in the distance. "The crown is pulling me. There's something ahead. Something important." They pushed through the underbrush, past ancient oaks and gnarled willows. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the hoot of owls, the distant howl of something that might have been a wolf. And then, through the trees, Harry saw it. A cave, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of ivy. The crown flared, its magic surging through him. "This is it," he breathed. "The entrance to the chamber." Draco moved forward, his wand raised. "I'll go first. I'll make sure it's safe." Harry shook his head. "No. This is my legacy. I have to do this myself." Draco hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Be careful, Harry. And come back to me." Harry smiled, a warm expression that surprised even himself. "I will. I promise." He pushed through the ivy and entered the cave. The walls were lined with carved serpents, their eyes gleaming with ancient magic. A winding path led deeper into the earth, and Harry followed it, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. The path opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center stood a massive statue, Salazar Slytherin, carved from obsidian, his eyes blazing with green fire. "Salazar," Harry breathed, approaching the statue. "I have come to claim my legacy." The statue's eyes flared, and a voice echoed through the chamber, ancient, powerful, filled with authority. "You have proven yourself worthy, Heir. The chamber is yours. The legacy is yours. Claim it, Harry Potter. Claim it and change the world." Harry felt the crown pulse against his chest, its magic surging through him. He reached out and touched the statue's pedestal, and the world exploded around him. He saw the history of the wizarding world, the founding of Hogwarts, the battles of the founders, the rise and fall of the old bloodlines. He saw Salazar Slytherin as he truly was, a man who had tried to protect his world, who had made mistakes. And sought to correct them. And through it all, he felt the crown's magic flowing through him, connecting him to the ancient power, to the legacy that was now his. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in the same chamber, the statue looming before him. But something had changed. The crown was warm against his chest, its magic pulsing in time with his heartbeat. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was ready. He was the true heir of Slytherin. And the world would never be the same. The crown pulsed, and Harry felt the chamber respond, the walls vibrating with ancient power, the serpents writhing in their stone prisons. The voice of Salazar Slytherin echoed through his mind, warm and approving. Asterisk welcome home, Heir. The chamber is yours. The legacy is yours. Now go, claim your destiny, and change the world, asterisk. Thank you.